Everyone, welcome to Concordia University's fourth space. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à l'espace 4, une installation de l'Université Concordia. Merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui pour l'événement Converging Horizons between Canada and West Africa, connecting research, communities, and ideas to achieve gender equality. L'événement est diffusé en direct de l'espace 4 et situé en territoire autochtone non cédé. Just to help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube, we are live from Fourth Space, and we are located here on unceded Indigenous lands in Cheaib, Montréal. À l'Espace 4, nous travaillons avec la communauté universitaire pour favoriser la mobilisation du savoir. At Fourth Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities and events. La rencontre aujourd'hui est une conversation en direct. Vous pouvez donc soumettre vos questions et vos commentaires par clavardage. We're running this event as a live stream Zoom meeting, and we welcome comments and questions via the chat. Now with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to the Associate VP International, the Office of the Vice President, William Cheaib. William, welcome in.
Thank you, Doug, and good morning, everyone. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Welcome, everyone, to Fourth Space, to Concordia University. It's a great pleasure to see you all here. I know, as Doug has mentioned, we have also participants online, so I want to wish a good welcome also to our virtual participants and guests. Our event today is special because we are convening many awardees of the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program, or also known as QES, from different institutions. So today is about the power of convening. It is the whole that is greater than the sum of the parts. One of the focus points of the QES is about impact. And in a world flooded with knowledge, with online information, the Scholars Program adds to the pursuit of ideas and research depth a sense of practicality and an attempt to catalyze meaningful change. Now, multiply that with the number of scholars, with the number of projects that are here, like you would see how this program could be powerful in bringing positive change. Concordia is honored to host this event today as it is perfectly aligned with our commitment to education and research for the real world, to experiential learning, to help advancing the SDGs, and of course, to our Africa initiative that aims to foster greater connections between Concordia and the African continent around entrepreneurship, employability, and scholarly activities. Now, where I come from, we say, one hand cannot clap. So first, I want to thank the Canadian government, the International Development Research Center, IDRC, the Rideau Hall Foundation, and of course, Universités Canada, for supporting and administrating the QES program. We are very, very grateful. Great thanks to the scholars and the champions who lead these projects and from whom we will be hearing today. I would be remiss if I don't also thank my colleagues, specifically for Badri Murali and Julio Sevilla from Concordia International, who have been working tirelessly to support the Concordia QES project, but also to make this event happen. So thank you all. Merci beaucoup. It is now my pleasure to invite Matt Henderson, Program Manager at Universités Canada, to share his remarks. Matt.
Good morning, everyone. It's so wonderful to be with you all here today. As was said, my name is Matt Henderson, and I am a program manager and the manager of the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program at Universités Canada. And I just want to begin this morning with to echo a couple of really, really important thank yous. The first is to the Rideau Hall Foundation and the International Development Research Center, as without their support, the QES program and the QES West Africa cohort of projects would not be possible. Both RHF and IDRC are integral to the ongoing success of the program and are both incredible organizations to be partnered with. The second is to the Inter-University Working Group, comprised of project leads and staff from participating Canadian universities, who came together and brainstormed this idea and made it come to life. You know, one of the key requirements of all QES projects is a commitment by institutions to provide leadership development and community engagement activities and to engage program participants before, during, and after the program. The excitement, passion, and participation in this room here today and online is a testament to the collaborative network that exists among the institutions and the commitment to providing these opportunities. And third, of course, is to Concordia University for hosting this event in such a unique and innovative space. And in particular, I want to thank Badri Morali as well, who spearheaded much of the logistical details of the event and who asked me to share a few words with you here this morning. Now, I don't want to start off the day with, kind of a lengthy history lesson on all things related to QES, but I do think it's important to kind of, share a little bit of the trajectory of the program and what brought us here today. QES was first launched in 2014, and at that time, the program had really kind of three overarching key objectives: to develop global citizens through academic, professional, and cross-cultural experiences, to foster the next generation of leaders in Canada and around the world by facilitating lasting global engagement, community engagement, both locally and globally, and to enhance the collaborative capacity and deepen relationships among Queen Elizabeth scholars to enrich the program experience and facilitate personal and professional growth. Now I have the great fortune and opportunity to kind of read all of the annual and scholar narrative reports from all of the QES West Africa projects. When I speak to project leads and scholars, and when I have the opportunity to attend events like this one today, it is so clear to me that we are achieving each and every one of those objectives. But don't just take my word for it. I just want to maybe quickly share a couple of really important data points of the history of the program. So since 2014, across all QES projects, we've had 47 participating Canadian institutions that have been involved in a project. Over 2,500 scholarships have been awarded across 112 projects, and those projects have partnered with over 650 community organizations around the world. It's really just incredible when we think about the impact that this program has had in a relatively short period of time, with only being kind of 10 years from 2014. And as I said at the outset, it's events like this, driven by the passion and dedication of participating post-secondary institutions and scholars alike, that make all of these outcomes possible. So once again, I just want to thank the Rideau Hall Foundation, the International Development Research Center, and to all of you in the room and online here today. I really look forward to the conversations and the presentations, and can't wait to learn more about your work and your projects. And so on the topic of projects, presentations, and keynotes, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing today's keynote speaker, Dr. Charlotte Wrigly Asante. Dr. Asante is a professor of geography and the current head of the Department of Geography and Resource Development at the University of Ghana. She is the immediate past co-director of the Marian Institute for Advanced Studies in Africa and the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy at the University of Ghana. She has several years of research experience focusing on the intersection of gender with issues of poverty, urbanization, empowerment, and climate change, both in urban and rural spaces of Ghana. Currently, her research is focusing on transforming institutions to advance women leaders in STEM fields and the socioeconomic and health vulnerabilities of women and informal traders in Ghana, with support from the International Development Research Center here in Canada. She has published extensively in many, many different journals and is a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of the Network of French Institutes for Advanced Study, and of course is also a member of the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program related to the West Africa Project between the University of Ghana and Concordia University here in Montreal. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Professor Asante. Thank you.
So good morning, and thank you very much for your kind words. I'm very delighted to be called upon to give the keynote speech for this very important program on the theme, Converging Horizons between Canada and West Africa, and connecting research, communities, and ideas to achieve gender equity. Let me first of all say a very big thank you to Concordia University, particularly the president, the vice president, and the university management, the International Programs Office, particularly Julio and Badri, for inviting me first to Canada and to be part of this program. Thank you very much. I'm also very grateful to Dr. Maite Jasor, with whom we have a collaboration as part of the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program. Maite, we are very, very grateful. Thank you very much. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. So when they asked me to do this, I've been thinking, that how do I start this whole thing? Then I remember that there's a whole debate about knowledge production when it comes to African scholars. So I'll first start with that and then try and link up some of the gender-related challenges and then give some examples of some initiatives, of course, with the QES program, and then we draw conclusions from there. So in the past few years, there have been concerns about the contribution of African scholars in general to global knowledge production. And this is as a result of several challenges that African scholars face, at least those of us based in our home countries, such as limited access to education and research, infrastructure, limited material and equipment, particularly the sciences, dependence on external knowledge systems, limited representation in global knowledge networks, and most importantly, limited government resources into research and development. So it's reported that sub-Saharan Africa produces less than 1% of global research output. And I got this from one of the publications in Lancet in 2018. Then I cited another article in the Journal of British Academy that also reported in 2021 that Africa contributes only 2% to global knowledge production, and a situation that is widely believed to account for its underdevelopment. So 2018, 1%, 2021, 2%, well, little progress, but clearly it is not enough. 2% of global knowledge production is a major challenge. Again, averagely, Africa contributes to about 0.4% of its GDP to research and development. And I also got some statistics on some countries, and I intentionally focused on West Africa because our concern is West Africa. Nigeria contributes about 0.22% of their GDP to research and development. Ghana, my own country, 0.38%. Burkina Faso is 0.67%. Mali is 0.29%. So clearly, almost all the countries are below 1% of the GDP to research and development. The only country in Africa that contributes so much is South Africa. And even that the data said is 0.82%, or almost 1%. But that is the only country doing very well when it comes to, a percentage of the GDP to research. Clearly, there's a huge challenge in terms of government expenditure and commitment to research and development for academics. This situation could be more challenging for early career faculty members, who obviously have very limited resources, limited networks and collaborations in conducting research and writing academic papers. At the same time, they are also saddled with heavy teaching loads, which obviously reduces the amount of time spent in conducting research and writing academic papers. In my own university, you can find an undergraduate class of about 500 to 800, and most of the time is the young faculty who handle those classes. So you can imagine, of course, sometimes there are senior faculty members who assist, but you can imagine the amount of time spent, especially in grading of scripts, and the amount of time that they have to, the amount of time that is needed to write publications. And we all know the academic space. You need to publish before you can progress your academic career. So in all of these, there are also gender dimensions. And female academics in Africa in particular face unique challenges And some of these include less access to resources such as insufficient funding as compared to their male counterparts, restricted access to publications, sometimes gender biases and discrimination that affect funding opportunities. Lack of mentorship and support is one of the key challenges, particularly for females. And of course, it has implications for guidance, support, and networking. Work-life balance conflicts is one of the major challenges for females, and sometimes gender-based violence and harassment that could affect one's career progression. Currently, one of the projects that I'm personally involved in is transforming institutions and how do we get more females into leadership, particularly in STEM fields. So some of these factors that I've highlighted are real. We have interviewed quite a number of females, a few females within the sciences, and they've highlighted most of these things as some of their major challenges, and it cuts across the sciences and then the arts and humanities. So these very challenging situations that female academics face contribute to the underrepresentation of women in all fields within the academy and in leadership positions. In view of these ongoing discussions and debates concerning knowledge production, decolonization of knowledge, and the challenges of female academics in particular, there have been several initiatives to enhance knowledge production in Africa. Indeed, over the years, the continent has depended greatly on international collaborations and visiting academics for its research output. Whilst there have been calls for more commitment on the part of our governments to commit more resources into research, as well as strengthening inter-African collaborations through inter-African networking, fellowship opportunities, capacity building, and investment in education and research. So whilst we are collaborating with our external partners, we are also calling on our governments to invest more resources into education and research, and particularly at the tertiary levels. One of such collaboration programs is, of course, the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program. Whilst the key objective of this program is to share knowledge, exchange ideas, and collaborate on meaningful initiatives, I believe this program also creates a hub for collaborative research and encourages intellectual exchanges across existing boundaries between disciplines and among different countries and cultures. At the same time, it increases the role of African scholars in formulating research agendas while ensuring greater visibility of African scholarly work. So at this point, I'll share just two examples of some early career scholars from Ghana that I personally interacted with and who participated or who have participated in the QES program. They did that a while ago. One, a male PhD student, and then a second, a female faculty member. So the male PhD student became a QES scholar at Laurel University. He spent time there, and the time provided him with the opportunity to meet and network with students and scholars from around the world. He had the opportunity to share ideas with his course mates and vice versa. So it's a two-way affair. So while sharing his experiences, his Canadian counterparts are also sharing, and both of them are learning from each other. And the opportunity also to learn from his professors that he was assigned to. He was able to complete his first draft of his thesis proposal within the time spent in Canada. And I will summarize his experience as follows, and I quote, "My multicultural experience in the English department at WLU has made me a better teacher in an increasingly multicultural global community. Multicultural experience enhances one's ability to embrace other cultures and be able to better interact with people of other cultures in order to be able to better serve society and the world." So that sums up his experience. Then the second is a female colleague, one of our own colleagues, who also was a beneficiary of this program at Calgary. And she said, and I quote, "The time spent in Calgary provided me with the opportunity to focus on my research work, and I was able to develop 2 academic papers during my 4-month stay in Canada through the QES program." So these are just 2 examples out of the many out there. Many of you are even in this room who have gone through the program. It clearly shows the immense benefits of such programs and collaborations in the sense that, 1, it creates opportunities for scholars, particularly early career scholars and academics, to focus on their research because you moved away from home, you are here, no distraction, particularly for the females, no distractions, you can focus and make good use of the time that you have here. Many are in the room and they can testify to that. There's also opportunity for access to specialized resources, library facilities, books, articles that one may not have access in their home country. In some cases, in some of our countries, in our part of the world, sometimes it's extremely difficult to get access to some of the books. Fortunately, at least for UG, they've done well to help us. They are subscribing so many journals, so we have a lot of access. But in some other countries, it's still a major challenge. So once you get access, or once you become a beneficiary of this program, you have access to all the facilities, just as we have in Concordia. It also builds networks, and that is key for any academic or scholar. And the benefit is both ways. Scholars and academics from the global north benefiting from the global south. And a classic example is our own program, led by Dr. Osien. There are scholars from Ghana, scholars from Canada, and we are interacting with each other, and now our networks are growing. So it enables academics from both the global north and the global south to also work together towards a common goal. And again, just as the project being led by Dr. Osien on gender equality and decolonizing of knowledge in Africa, we are working towards a common goal, trying to redefine this whole concept of gender equality from the African perspective. And that's a classic example of that. So we are working towards a common goal. It builds the capacity of young African scholars. And as we link up younger scholars and more experienced scholars, they learn from each other. And it's also a way of mentoring young scholars. It contributes to knowledge production, and this contributes to narrowing the gap between the global north and then the global south. For instance, one of our major output for the project led by Dr. Osien is to come up with a special issue in a high-impact journal. And as we are able to, if we are able to do that, and I hope we'll be able to do that, then all of our scholars, each of them will have a paper in that journal, and they are contributing to narrowing the gap between the global north and then the global south. It strengthens the capacity of particularly female scholars, who not young African scholars, but also particularly female scholars, because there are also interaction between established and early career researchers. And as we did, we are also providing mentorship. I've been here barely 2 weeks. I didn't know most of them, even though we are all in the same, or from the same university, but they keep on asking me questions, and I'm responding to those questions. So as I'm doing that, it's also a form of mentoring the young scholars from my own university. One of the key things is that it also helps to embrace other cultures, so we can have better interaction with people and then the community. It helps to reorient notions and perceptions about people. We are sharing ideas. So I am sure that our partners here, they are reorienting the whole perception about Africa or about Ghana. And we've also learned a lot of perception about Canada, and that is key for us as human beings. It helps to address societal problems better because we are engaging the community work that we are doing, we are engaging with the society. So clearly, there are a lot of benefits with this kind of programs. So the Queen Elizabeth Scholars Program is an excellent program by all standards. And I commend the Canadian government for this program, and then for the universities which have subscribed to these programs, including Concordia University. Through this program, Africa's knowledge production is being highlighted, and this is contributing to bridging the gap in existing asymmetries in global knowledge production, and also emphasizing on the critical role of more equitable forms of academic collaboration, since it's creating co-production of knowledge between African scholars and Canadian scholars. Again, just as the project that we are on with Dr. Osien. It is my expectation that there will be more of such collaborations with African universities, particularly between Concordia University and West African universities, and perhaps I would say with the University of Ghana, because that's where I come from. We need this continuous collaboration so as to continue to support African scholars and the process of empowering young African scholars, particularly or especially female scholars. As the world strives to achieve the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 5, gender equality and women's empowerment, it is imperative that special attention is paid to female scholars in the QES program. We need female scholars to be able to contribute their quota to knowledge production within the Africa, particularly within the African continent. I chanced on one article that I think somewhere in Zimbabwe, and it shows generally very low. Africa contributes very low, but the majority of the people contributing are the male scholars. So there is a gap between the global north, global south, but at the same time, a gap even within Africa between females and female scholars. So it's very, very important that we pay attention to female scholars, not only early career scholars, but also if we could find a way of encouraging both female scholars across different disciplines, career stages, linguistics, and scholarly tradition, so that we could ensure sustainable scholarly networks. It's very, very important. This certainly will bridge the knowledge production gap, as well as the gender gap in producing knowledge, and most importantly, contribute to better management of our universities and society as a whole. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asante, for the really inspiring but also informative words that you shared with us, because as William and Matt have already mentioned, that I've been working especially on the logistical end of this program. And it's after all these months of writing letters to support visa applications, making sure that the finances are all falling into place as they need to, it's easy, even in my own position, to sometimes lose sight and track of why we are doing this work that we're doing. So thank you for sharing that with all of us and for grounding me in the process as well. So thank you. So now I'll give you a brief overview of how this morning is going to run and the activities for today. We'll start off with 2 panel discussions, and then it'll be followed by an afternoon session where you'll have a chance to talk to the scholars, interact with them, learn about the work that they're doing, but also for the scholars, for you to be able to get to know each other, right? I know that, at least in my experience speaking with the inbound scholars at Concordia from the University of Ghana, I know it has been a very, very, very busy and filled sets of weeks where you have been doing research and conferences and meetings. And now's the time for you to just relax a little bit, talk informally, laugh, get to know each other, and most importantly, have fun. We are really happy to see you all here. I know that we have worked very hard as well, and it brings me a lot of joy that even if it's a bit of a gray, dreary morning in Montreal, that we still have a room full of our scholars. So our first panel will be, I'm not going to go into too much detail because the purpose of today is for the scholars and the PIs to be able to speak and to really share and discuss their knowledge and their experiences. But I'll still give you just a brief overview of what the panels are about. So the first panel will be moderated by Dr. Jasor, and it's on contextualizing North American and West African approaches to gender and feminisms, as well as next steps for future development and collaboration. The following panel will be moderated by Dr. Melanie Katsivo, and it'll be looking at engaging efficiently with community and audiences in a changing world, adapting knowledge mobilization practices to changing socio-political and technological contexts. Again, two very interactive, but also very, what I'm sure are going to be educational and really informative panels. Following that, we'll have some closing remarks. Joining us virtually from the Université de Montréal, Ms. Virginie Allard Cameus, who is the executive director of their international office. And following that, this is where now I have some specific instructions for our scholars present. On the other side of this screen, you may not have already seen it, but we have a few interactive booths and stations. And there will be name tags as well. So right after the closing remarks, we will ask you to go over there and be ready, because as you can see in the space, we have a lot, we're being recorded, and we have a really cool feature with the rover camera, which you see right over there, that's going to go around, and everybody's going to get up to 1 minute to briefly introduce themselves and the work that they have been doing. And this is something that will also be shared to our audience joining us on Zoom. This way, everybody still gets a chance to listen to the amazing work that's being done. And I'm just personally very happy and excited. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again, to be able to witness this with everyone and experience it as well. And now, just with the assistance of the Fourth Space staff, I'll ask for the panelists for the first panel to please come up, as well as for the staff to do what needs to be done to include the folks joining us from Zoom. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline. I'm with Fourth Space. I'm just looking to connect here with Phyllis and Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you please turn on your cameras if you can? And also please feel free to unmute. That way that we can see and hear you in the space. Great, perfect. So we can see you. That's awesome. Would you mind unmuting just so that we can test to make sure that we hear?
Hello, good morning.
Perfect. Great, we can. And Sarah, just a quick question for you. Do you have any slides, anything that you plan on sharing in the space today?
No,
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. And Phyllis, would you mind unmuting your microphone really quickly for us, please?
You can try again, Phyllis. We just adjusted.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Phyllis here. I'm still not able to turn on my video, but I'm here and I'm following. Good afternoon to everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much. We'll get started shortly.
Okay, I think we have everyone.
So Phyllis is okay and on? Okay, so we are all here, I believe. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Phyllis.
Hello.
Hello. All right, well, welcome to all three of you. We are going to have a conversation about our projects, and I'm going to do my best to contextualize it for the purpose of this panel. So I'm Dr. Maite Jasor here at Concordia. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. And I'm supposed to, I'm the PI project lead, I think I heard Matt say, for our project here at Concordia in collaboration with the University of Ghana. That our QES are all here. So today we'll try to share some of our successes, challenges, experiences that all four of us have had as part of the QES project. I have here with me Sarah Cooper, Phyllis Addo, and Marija Djekic-Ivankovic. Is that okay? You will say your name properly once you introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself as well before you speak. Okay, so the subject that was given to me for this panel is contextualizing North American and West African approaches to gender and feminisms, and next steps for future development and collaboration. So my first question to all of you, and then I will also contribute some of my experiences, I suppose. I need to keep this like that, is what are some of the gaps in gendered perspectives in your discipline? And how does your research within the QES program highlight gender-related issues and contribute to the body of work in your field? So please feel free to give examples, and I think that you have about 3 to 4 minutes each, and then we can, feel free also to respond to each other if you feel like that's something that you also want to do. Okay, so I'm going to start with Sarah. Please introduce yourself, and then you can.
Okay, perfect. And please let me know if it feels like I'm shouting in the room. I don't want to feel like I'm shouting at you guys from virtually. So my name is Sarah Cooper. I am currently pursuing a PhD in public health, global health at the School of Public Health of the Université Montréal, École de Santé Publique de l'Université de Montréal. I'm also affiliated with the Research Center of Public Health. My doctoral studies are supervised by Dr. Thomas Duretz, and I was a QES scholar from 2022 to 2023 through the University of Montreal and the Unité Santé International program, which was called, I think in English, the translation was Reinforcement of Human Resources and the Research in Women's Health, Adolescent Health, Girls' Health in West Africa and the DRC. This program helped support my data collection for my doctoral thesis in Burkina Faso. And it helped also support a research institute, a research internship at the institute in Benin. And I think it's pretty obvious that my research interests include maternal reproductive sexual health. And these are the examples which I'm going to share today. So what are the gaps in gendered perspectives in my disciplines? I think we're all here today because there's obviously still lots of gaps in gendered perspectives in global health, women's health, sexual and reproductive health. My project in particular, to give a bit more context, is to help increase knowledge about the impact of certain policies that are being put in place in Burkina Faso, but also across many countries in West Africa. There's a lot of free maternal health care policies that are being put in place. So my project aims to increase the knowledge about these policies and their impact and their effects on women's reproductive health care services. So have they increased their access to maternal health care services? Have they increased the utilization of maternal health care services, and in particular, their quality of care? So in the way that my research project helps to maybe reduce the gap in gendered perspectives is that a lot of times when we're trying to measure the impacts or the effects of these policies, we don't necessarily incorporate the experiences or the perspectives of the people who are experiencing or living through the maternal health care process. So a lot of times when we're trying to measure maternal health, it is a very top-down approach where there is little to no implication of the women or the community members in the decision-making process. So my research hopes to incorporate the perceptions and experiences of women to inform the healthcare policy and improve the measurement of quality maternal care in order to have a more gender equitable way to conceptualize the quality of maternal health care services, which will then improve women's access to them. So in short, introduction of myself and my research project.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm going to give the floor to Phyllis so that you can also share.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And I'd say briefly about me. As mentioned, my name is Phyllis Addo. I'm currently with the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Ghana, particularly with the School of Public Health, Family and Community Health Department. So I had the privilege of being part of the second cohort of the QES West Africa Advanced Scholars Program. And I'm going to mention two major projects. I'm doing one directly related to QES, and then the other, what I'm doing in my line of work as a researcher, and how this is also contributing to the gender issues we are talking about here. So as part of our activities, our cohort of the QES scholars, we decided to do a review on gendered roles and challenges when it comes to food rights and food sovereignty in West Africa. And of course, the discipline of food systems and agriculture has long recognized the importance of gender equality and women's empowerment in achieving nutrition and food security. Yet there are still critical gaps when it comes to representation, when it comes to participation of women in decision-making processes related to food systems. We all know that women, right from the farm to fork to flash, women play a major role along the food systems. In Ghana, for example, when you take the micro, small, medium scale enterprises, women make more than 90% of these when it comes to food processing, when it comes to selling food produce from the market. So our research aimed at throwing more light on the roles women play and some of the challenges they face, uniquely face as women in discharging their roles in the food systems. So I'm happy to share that it's still in the review process and it will be published soon. And we're happy to share the results with everyone. But what we found out is that unlike traditionally believed that women probably played more role in caregiving in homes, women played diverse role in crop production, both food crops, cash crops. They also do a lot of activities along marketing, along processing, storage, and then even consumption level, how these foods are fed to the family. So that is what we are contributing to the gender space, that women are contributing to food sovereignty in West Africa, and that these special challenges they are facing, for instance, when it comes to land rights, owning lands and all, these issues have to be brought up in discussions and that they have to be given specific interventions to ensure that their roles are coming up with the best benefit we can all get as a society. And then secondly, I'll talk about what I'm currently doing around, it's still on food systems, but the focus is generating evidence to support, to use school feeding programs or school meals as a driver for food system transformation in Ghana. So what we are currently doing is that we are looking at our indigenous foods and how we could incorporate this into the school meals. And in Ghana, most of the food caterers or school feeding caterers are women. In fact, almost 100% of them, the cooks are women. And then most of smallholder farmers too, who supply food to these catering services are women. So we are looking at how we could empower them right from production through to milling or storage till it gets to the plate of the child. And this way, we are also not improving the nutrition of the student, but also making sure that these women get the best out of what they are doing. Because most of the time, when they have to sell their food to aggregators or off-takers, they are cheated. How do we help them to get the best value or best prices from what they grow? How do we even help them to add value to what they are growing so that they can get good pricing for what they are selling? How do we even help them to process the foods by themselves? So we are introducing a technology, we call it Paddle to Empower. These are bikes that they could paddle to help them mill some of their products into powdered form and into form that they can store for long periods. So briefly, I think this is what I'm doing as part and my colleagues are doing to throw more light on the role women are, to amplify the roles women are playing, and also to add our voices to the fact that they need to be given specific attention because of the challenges they face along the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you for this detailed description of your work and your project as well. Maria?
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here this morning with you. My name is Marija Djekic-Ivankovic. I am coming from 800 meters away from McGill School of Population and Global Health, so I woke this morning. My background, briefly, by training, I'm a pharmacist. I did my PhD in biochemistry and nutrition, and I came to McGill to do my PhD from Eastern Europe, from ex-Yugoslavia. So for the last 4 years, I apply my expertise in the field of global and public health and nutrition in the School of Population and Global Health. And my research focus is in maternal and child health. So I didn't have a lot of research on gender. However, I can give a perspective from maternal and child health nutrition that I'm working on. Since Phyllis gave a lot of insights into our research, we are working together for the last year and a half since we met at QES program in Ghana. We were both participating in 2023 in Netlink's project, QES West Africa second cohort, where it was 11 of us coming from 6 West African countries and only me from Canada. And that was transformative experience. It was my first time in Africa. And those 2 months that I spent last year in Ghana opened my eyes and transformed me in many ways, many positive ways, I would say. So since that time, since Phyllis gave a very detailed insight into what we did together so far and recognized the gaps in gendered perspective in our discipline, I would just give a brief overview how we came from different disciplines and how we emerged around a problem and give a different perspectives into how we can find a potential solution. And I think that that's a beauty of QES program that encourage us to think differently, to connect, and the network that we built right now across 7 countries resulted in one review, as Phyllis mentioned, one additional manuscript that is in progress. We recognize needs based on the review, and we put together one application for research project for a grant, and we are working on the second one right now. So all of that resulted from Netflix project and our time that we spent together. And I think that it's crucial what was mentioned this morning, what a keynote speaker mentioned, that when we were away from our families and our settings, we were able to focus and do more. And when we gathered our forces together, we were even in a better position to accomplish more. So this is for what I would bring for a first question. Thank you.
Thank you all. From what I hear you guys say, I think that there's a focus on local, local initiatives, but also trying to find local solutions to local problems. In my field of transnational feminism, the local is often, understood in relationship, but almost in contrast with the global, right? And what transnational feminist work or scholars have done is to complicate this divide, to challenge it a bit, and show the interrelationships that exist instead between the local and the global. So instead of being too essentialist and separate kind of spaces, they really interact with each other. Now, my second question, I suppose, I would encourage you to think about your work in West Africa in response to some of the global discourses around gender equality, that in some way we are all here trying to respond to. For our project, and I assume all of you guys' project, is to tackle gender inequality and to kind of assess the state of gender inequality or equality, depending on whether you want to be positive or negative, and to see how we can advance, right, our common goals. So there are some prescriptions that come from international organizations such as the UN and global organizations about how are we to tackle gender inequality, assess it and advance it by a certain date. I think 2030 is our next kind of assessment here. At the same time, feminists, practitioners, scholars and activists on the ground in West Africa, in the case of this project, right, have been very vocal about, okay, we need that global agenda, but also there are some specific problems when we do work at the local level, at the community level, at the grassroots level, and we have also to have to keep at heart the agenda and the priorities of the constituents of our communities. So my question is, how challenging or possible, have you found your research to be in the context of a global movement and global discourses for gender equality? How does your work complement, perhaps complicate, perhaps challenge, right, this type of greater feminist debates within international organizations around gender equality and women's empowerment? Let's just keep the same order. Maybe Sarah, you start.
So how challenging has it been to kind of like, I guess, move forward this greater feminist debate, right? And how can we translate theory into practice? Because it's great to read about all these great feminist debates, but how can we actually implement it in practice? So in my experience, it was challenging at first because, so with my data collection, we wanted to use a new form or a new tool of type of data collection in order to try to integrate women more in the decision-making process and the measurement of quality in maternal care. However, we weren't sure how this new data collection tool would be perceived, how it would be implemented, how can we translate a tool that has been used in English literature into a French-speaking, colonial French-speaking country. So the tool is fuzzy cognitive mapping, which is a way of kind of using discussion groups, but as well an activity making for community members to make their own conceptual framework of how they perceive a certain concept. And in our case, it was quality maternal care. So how can we translate this tool, fuzzy cognitive mapping, which as well, like the word in itself, when you hear it, it might be very, what is this tool? How can we translate this tool into French and then as well into the local language in order for it to be conceived properly? And as well, so that was the first challenge, methodological challenges. But I think the way we were able to go across this barrier was by making sure that there was a lot of workshopping of the tool with partners and having a strong partenarial relationship in order to adapt the tool. How can we make it culturally sensitive? How can we make it known that this can be implemented correctly? Another challenge, I think, in regards to trying to examine gender issues and practices related to woman versus man is that it's the methodological choices of the sampling of your sample sizes, who you're trying to recruit for your process. Are you reaching all the women that you can? Perhaps you're not. How are you making sure that you're looking at all inequalities between men and women in the household? So are you looking at, are you trying to recruit women from varying socioeconomic status? So that can be a challenge in itself of trying to recruit women from all these different groups to making sure that their voices are heard. But I think, again, a way to get around this, or a way to try and circumvent this challenge, is a strong partnership with your research institute in your respective country, and as well strong partnerships with the communities in order to help recruit women from varying different backgrounds based on education, young, old, because it's not just exploring gender issues, it's not just about exploring women in their one category of group, but it's also about exploring different types of women. So those are two challenges that I've seen in my line of work.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that one of the challenges that you mentioned is actually very important, and it's one that African feminists have been very loud and adamant about when invited to, global conferences on gender equality, is the fact that, well, they have written and really advocated for the inclusion of African women from different backgrounds and different communities, different ethnicities, different geographical location, rural versus, rural versus urban, different age, generational, right? Saying that having one narrative from one, from one specific community, for example, or background is actually not reflective of the wealth of differences that we find on the continent. And for that reason, we do not talk of African feminism, but actually of African feminisms with an S. And so thank you for this. It's actually a very important challenge.
Yes.
Phyllis, thank you.
Yeah, good one. So I won't say I'm an expert when it comes to gender, but I would, what I would like to say is for our research, generating evidence or generating the data to support policies or intervention is not an end in itself, because the end result is we want to see something done about the situation, but we want to produce contextual evidence to support why things have to be done the way they should. So one of the main challenges I mentioned earlier was representation. So we do all these beautiful things, we empower the women, we give them support so they could also make decisions, but in the long run, we also live in a setting where we are guided by traditions and cultural practices, which becomes very challenging. So for instance, with our school feeding program, we still have to talk to a lot of our male counterparts when it comes to even supporting the females. We had to have meetings with them to help us understand what they think. Because you empower a woman at one end and then it becomes a challenge in the home. So you have to you have to do it in a way that what you are given will not also generate more problems for the people you are supporting. And then when it comes to passing policies and interventions, we talk about representation. When you go to the Parliament of Ghana now, where laws are being passed, women are seriously underrepresented. So you generate all these evidence and still people have to make the final decisions. We are still underrepresented. We see things differently. So how do they understand that this is a special issue that needs attention? So you have a lot of social intervention programs in Ghana, and most of them, I should say, are not very gender sensitive or specific, because we want to bridge a gap. We want to solve a problem, but the final decision lies with people. We don't have equal representation. We don't have people who also view it as a problem. They don't see it as a problem. It becomes really challenging when you are pushing for policies. In our context, also in our culture, things are changing now. It's becoming better. But if you're a woman and you are very assertive, they see you as disrespectful, you want to something a male can do easily, if a female does, they say, hey, it's a problem. So all these systems, all these cultural norms, they become very difficult. People understand things have to change, things have to be done, but these are major barriers to seeing the results we want to see, seeing that women are given the space to operate, even if they are they are qualified? Do they have the ability to compete? Yesterday, I was given an example that myself and my male colleagues, we are University of Health and Allied Sciences. We understand the essence of exclusive breastfeeding. Nutritionists, we know how it's important for the baby, even for generations. Yet, in Ghana, we have 3 months maternity leave. I have to report to work after giving birth, 3 months, to do the same, handle the same workload my male colleagues are handling. You are not given a special treatment. We have the same time to qualify for promotion. So there's this systems that's really become a barrier which has to be taken. And I think with time we will get there. But these are real challenges when it comes to, after generating the evidence, what's next? It's really challenging for us to get policy spars or interventions done to support women. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you. I think that to contextualize a little bit again is another argument of feminists and gender activists, gender practitioners on the ground is the necessity to really pay attention to barriers on the ground and barriers to a certain project, to being able to carry out and really see results in a certain project. I myself do work in well, one of the research hats that I have is I do work around gender justice in South Africa. And I agree with you, Phyllis. One of my arguments is that we need to take into account what I hear you say: cultural barriers, structural barriers, institutional barriers, and also to really understand gender justice, gender equality or inequality more in a context, in a certain context, and to pay attention to the social historical, context in which communities find themselves in. And that has also been one of the arguments of transnational feminists and or development or scholars working in gender and development, is that, of course, it's great to have prescriptions and policies coming from, the global system, but ultimately there are real barriers at the local level, right, on the ground, at the community level, that we need to also take into consideration. And therefore, this is why a context-based understanding of issues is so important, to understand not just present issues, but historical issues, cultural issues, and also issues related to our, the global economy in which we live. So thank you, Phyllis. Let me let Maria talk about.
Thank you. So as Phyllis and me are working together, I'll just build on what Phyllis highlighted with a few examples. So I would like actually to make 3 points here. As a researcher who is coming from the Western world, I had certain expectations when I saw data for my project, collected data already for my project from Ghana Health Service for the last 3 years. The aim of my project was to look at maternal and child nutrition data collected from Ghana Health Service, and to understand what are nutritional issues, in particular among children, and to understand the drivers for them and to give a recommendation. And when I went over the data before I went to Africa, I had a certain expectations and I had a certain ideas how those issues might be, how we can work on them, such as malnutrition, such as stunting, double burden of malnutrition. However, when I went on the ground, my idea how to handle that completely changed, as the situation and the environment was different from what I was assuming just by reading data. For example, second date of my visit in Ghana, Ghana Health Service paid a visit to a local clinic for us to understand how data is collected. And so that was my first interaction with nurses as well as with the community. So first thing that I saw is that all around the clinic were messages encouraging fathers and males to enroll in activities related to health of their children. So to bring them in to how important vaccination is, how important nutrition is. So I asked them, I asked the nurses around, oh, I see that you are like encouraging people to husbands to come with their wives. They said yes, and even here, if they come together, we are giving them a fast track, so women will not wait. So this is how the woman will kind of also have benefits of it, and the husband will feel like that he has a like additional purpose. So I didn't understand at that time how important that part is. I was like, why those who came alone, why they don't have the same treatment? However, what I learned after is that many women that we talked with, they missed some appointments, they missed vaccinations, as they stated that in their household, a male who is the head of the household, their husband or the father-in-law, didn't give them approval or money to come to appointment in the clinic. So that was one aspect. The second aspect was that they thought that it's not necessary. It's in particular related to vaccines, they had a lot of cultural beliefs and they were not educated about it. The third thing was I came into the room and mother-in-law was there. So I was talking to mom. However, all the decisions related to baby were made by mother-in-law. So that dynamic between who is making decisions, what the power a woman has in making decisions were completely new to me. So this is something that we have to account in particular when we talk about nutrition. Assessing gender in nutritional research is crucial in order to work on malnutrition, in addition to education and women empowering, but education not only for women, but for everyone around to understand how important, in my case, nutrition is and why they need all of them to work together to get better nutrition and to avoid malnutrition. I have one more point. So since we talk about global and local aspects, so like what we called glocal, is we did something that we called equitable partnership approach. So for any interaction, for any among the institutions and even among colleagues coming from different institutions, we are trying to set the stage for future research or collaborations by developing or highlighting how important is equity partnership approach, and with that gender lens, so that before we start any research together or any collaboration, that we are on the same page how we are working together and how we respect equitable partnership approaches.
Thank you, Maria. And this is the perfect segue actually for my next question, because which is, let me just say, my next question is, can you think of similarities and differences between Western practice and and African practice when it comes to gender? And what are some of the challenges that you've encountered doing research in either space or both spaces. And I think that that's exactly what you spoke to, a need to really stay open to the very surprising reinventions that you find when you step in, local communities or in a specific context, renegotiations happening on the ground. I know that I suppose that I want to ask you guys to speak to this a bit more, especially because you have done work in both spaces, both in Western spaces and also in African spaces. From my own experience, I have found that a lot of, well, from my experience working as a researcher, doing ethnographic research, but also even teaching on transnational feminists at Concordia, in a Western institution. Oftentimes, feminism is understood as a singular concept, and it is not. And a lot of students get always surprised by the difference in terms of what is important, what is called feminism, even between the West and the global South, the global North and the global South. So, in your individual projects, what are some of the those surprising reinventions that you've had to do, or things that challenged you or surprised you, or that you were maybe ready for in terms of conducting research in both spaces? Sarah, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. And because I wanted to add to what my colleague had said of her experience in Ghana working with maternal health and nutrition. Because in my context, in my research project, I was pleasantly surprised and had to do the same type of renegotiation in terms of the woman versus the male position in the household. So like in my work is all about, putting women's voices first in terms of measurements of quality maternal care. And what we've seen in terms of like the discussion groups or the discussions we've had with women on the field, and especially in rural communities, is that women actually want more implication, more sense of, we say that in French, sensibilisation. So they want their husbands to be more implicated in the process, because the husbands don't know or don't realize any of what is going on in terms of what happens when women are going for their antenatal visit, when they're going for checkups, when they're getting weighed. Because and this is an example, so when women arrive to the healthcare center and they realize that they have to go buy material or buy medication, and the healthcare personnel says, well, why don't you have any money? Why don't you have any money to go buy this? You need to buy it here at the healthcare center because the pharmacy's here. And the woman says, well, my husband didn't give me money. He didn't think that I needed. He doesn't think that I need to have money in order to buy these materials. And she said the recommendation going forward is that we need to have the men there in the room and to have the healthcare personnel implicate them in this whole process. And I thought that was very eye-opening and very transforming, because from when I started my PhD and when I started in like my literature review, I wanted women to be first. Women, or I was almost in the extreme of it's only women we have to hear to have their voices heard. But I think going forward, we need to renegotiate these power dynamics. We need to also implicate the men in some regard to try and level out the balance and to help improve the healthcare experience for the women at large. So it's one example, which is very similar to the colleague in nutrition.
Thanks, Sarah. Phyllis, you want to take a few minutes?
Yes, I wouldn't say much because I wouldn't have much experience working in in the global north, but I would say even in the global south, depending on the location, you have some disparities. So, for instance, rural versus urban, the narrative may be different. Even in the urban settings, depending on the location where this is going on, you see some differences. Even in our own country, you go somewhere, you see things and you get surprised that, hey, this thing really happens to people around here. So like we had a project in the northern part of Ghana, and we were riding in a vehicle, a university vehicle, and our leader was a female. So we saw these farmers coming from farm and they needed a lift. But because they were males, I don't know whether the culture does not allow them. So they asked the driver for a lift and he said, you need to talk to my boss. My boss is the female. Then they said, okay, well, then we would rather not ask, we will walk. I was shocked because, and these are things because the boss is a female, they don't understand why they should ask permission from a female to get on a bus for free. So these things vary depending on the settings, depending on the location, and that is what I would say. We all get some surprises along. We get some feeling of how they work different. That is why we need to also contextualize the situation and tell the stories as they appear and get specific solutions to solve these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you very much. So the last two questions, we have about 10 more minutes, I suppose. Yeah, a little bit more. I want to take it to the subject of collaboration, and especially feminist collaboration, right? In the context of this project, so which is between the global north, Canada, and West Africa, the global south. Okay. So and it's in line with also transnational feminist praxis, which is the conceptualization that I'm using here to bridge all of our experiences. So one of the critical contributions of transnational feminist scholars has been around collaboration, effective collaboration, but also transformative collaboration. In particular, they have paid attention to the unequal distribution of power, which Dr. Wrigly Asante also spoke about in her introduction, in her speaker's note. So what kind of collaboration is truly feminist? And they would say one that takes into consideration or pay attention to the unequal power relations present in any sort of collaboration between different spaces, in this case, Canada and West Africa. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about, you know, what this project, the QES project, has taught you in relation to how to become aware and also become aware and put in practice almost, right? This awareness around unequal, you know, coming to the project from different backgrounds and the type of power dynamics that creates. So please feel free to talk about that, your experience in academia, but also in West Africa around, you know, unequal access to authority as knowledge producers, or unequal access to the field as women researchers, unequal access to resources and mobility maybe. Anything related to this kind of power dynamics at play in any collaboration. Sarah, you want to start?
Yes, I can start. So I guess I will talk more about more the side of unequal power dynamics and relations in academia. So something that I knew before, because I had also did a internship at a research institute at the Sud and Cotonou, Benin. And something I was aware about, but it was made blatantly clear when I had arrived there, was just the unequal access to knowledge. Let's say open access journals, articles, etc. You know, we're very privileged here in Canada or at our universities, our establishments, that we can have, you know, all the access to all the articles that we like. And when I was in Benin, I was tasked with conducting a literature review on quality of maternal care in the West African context and the different standards and the different guidelines that are out there in order to measure quality maternal care. And I noticed, just because my credentials came from University of Montreal, I had more access to articles versus my colleagues at the Research Institute. And even that was made more, it was a more visual representation of these power dynamics and access to knowledge that still exist. And I would send all of the articles that I could to my colleagues at the Research Institute. So that is one example that I've seen through working in this, through the QES Scholars Program, in terms of unequal power dynamics and relations.
Thank you, Sarah. Phyllis, do you want to add to this?
Yes, I'll say the Queen Elizabeth program for me. In Ghana, we had the opportunity to interact with some female role models who came around to share the experiences of how they navigated their path in academia, in leadership. And that was truly eye-opening for me, because it gives you a sense that regardless of the hurdles or the challenges or the barriers, which are maybe specific to women, these people still were able to make it. So for me, that was very inspiring. And knowing that there are other female colleagues elsewhere who also face similar challenges but are still doing it encourages me to push beyond the boundaries and do more. So it's one of the things I got from QES, and the fact that we even have constant these strong network that you could always reach out to our colleagues in McGill. Like Sarah said, if we need papers we can't get access to, Maria quickly gets it for us, or we can, Professor Marquez is able to give support in any way. It's a very great opportunity for me joining QES. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. And well, we'll talk more about this in the next question, but yeah, both of your answers, I think, point to the usefulness of collaboration that is genuine and, you know, and does not seek to just take advantage of access, but really, you know, to also do the ethical work of contributing to wherever you do research to, right? As co-participants and not just as the object doing research on the subject. So yes, Maria, you want to add to this?
I'll just add briefly about how I think that QES, for me, highlighted how we have, as a woman, we have a very similar challenges in terms of how to handle our private and academic life and our research. And what Phyllis mentioned, having lectures from some role models who shared some practical things with us, brought us together in terms of like, yeah, we are facing the same problems. It doesn't matter what we are doing, how large our research is, how complicated things at academia are, but when we come home, we have to feed kids. So one of the professors was sharing her, how she handled that, how she said, invest in a large freezer. Like, you have to cook. You have to feed your family, so like cook big batches, add and have that at home so that it will make your life easier. From those very simple and practical life hacks to how to handle unequal access to grant, to knowledge, to resources at your institution, which, as Phyllis mentioned, we are trying to overcome by sharing resources, by sharing tools, or jumping in when some of the challenges they face and my group and my team can help with. But I learned two important points. When women lead, better health follows. That's same at every continent, from my perspective, at least in my field. And I learned importance of community wherever you go. In addition to this networking, at least my experience that you are not only connecting with colleagues, you are connecting with their teams, you're connecting with their families and with their communities. And also understanding their needs and how certain needs can be fulfilled. And also I learned how grateful they are and how grateful we should be. Wherever we are in life, there are things that we should be grateful for. So this is what, in addition to networking and strong community that we developed, this is what I learned from QES program.
Thank you, and thank you for taking it to the personal, which is such an important feminist practice, to not just talk about, you know, our careers and our research, but how also it impacts us as people, as women, right? And collaboration, and I think true feminist collaboration changes you at your core, I think, as women. And it's great to, so as much as transnational feminist theory emphasize the need to pay attention to differences and unequal access and power relations and all of that, at the end of it, collaboration needs to make bridges as well. Cannot collaborate if we only focus on what separates us. And so to me, you know, doing collaborative work that is truly transnational and feminist in essence, right? Like I would need two things, and all of you guys spoke to it. I would need to first come to the field or come to the collaboration very aware of my own positionality, and understanding my own privilege, or in a lot of cases also my own lack of privilege, depending on which space I am in. Which space do I get greater access to, greater resources to, and which space gets completely closed to me on the basis of my positionality, so my gender, my race, all sorts of things, right? And to be acutely aware of power relations, but also always looking for bridges and similarities, not forcibly, so not wanting to create them forcibly at the expense of other people, you know, of reality, but fostering them and encouraging them whenever I see them or I find them. And that's how I try to you know, embody my research in transnationally, I suppose. So thank you guys for speaking to this. It's so important, and it can be a challenging thing to achieve, but it seems like you guys have managed to do it. So I suppose my last question, I had plans on asking you, you know, about your institution, your research, but I think that you guys talked about this already. So I'll end this panel with just a question on what's your next steps? What's your future projects? Maybe coming out of QES or just simply your own. What's ahead of you in terms of, gender-related research? Sarah?
Big question. I think next step is to finish my PhD first and foremost. Finish and write and defend. But I think the gender dynamic. I will always be interested in gender dynamics and maternal health and access to healthcare services. And I think the next subject matter that I will be interested in my future career is this climate change discourse and the climate change dilemma. And how does that, there's lots of research, lots of literature that's coming out that the individuals, the people who will bear the most drastic impact and effects of climate change will be women in the future, just because based on their level in the power dynamics, the fact that perhaps they are still working more, or working in the fields, farmers, bearing the fruit of being a mother. So I think that this is my future direction, my future subject matter that I will be interested in, and which will be in the discourse, I think, a lot in gender related research.
We may have lost Phyllis, so go ahead.
Yeah.
For the last few weeks in Ghana, there are a lot of issues regarding internet and connection. So this is why we lost Phyllis. Another challenge in collaboration and work. However, I would like to share a few things that we are planning to do in the close future. Both Phyllis, myself, and the team from her institution, University of Health and Allied Sciences, and University of Ghana, and 6 more institutions from Ghana, KNUST, KTU, Ghana Industry Association, and few other institutions. We are getting together for the next 10 years to work on the increasing capacity in agriculture, education, nutrition, and helping with decreasing stunting in Ghana. With this project is called Nikaboom, which my understanding on Ga language means unity. And we are powered for the next 10 years by MasterCard Foundation to work on this. Miguel is a lead from Canadian side, and as I said, we have 8 institutions in Ghana. So that's next step. However, I would like to end with a very exciting project proposal that we are putting together, as when we went on the field to do nutritional work, we recognized in one very informal settings where we had a group of young adolescents, 10 to 14 years old girls, that were drawing their experience. And the question was like, why you, in addition to nutritional questions, it was like, are you missing the school for any reasons? And what are the obstacles that you are facing? And I have a drawing of that girl that is 12 years old, the same age like my kid here. And she drew how her access to menstrual hygiene products is so limited that unfortunately many of girls in that rural area of North Ghana or Volta region of Ghana, north part of Volta region, they're facing a reality that they don't have those basic menstrual pads, or they have to stay home, they cannot go to school, and they're missing a lot of in school. And after some of their peers mentioned that they can go into transactional sex to obtain pads, and she drew all the parts, what happened, how she got pregnant, got abortion, and how now her position in the community is very challenging. So with having that in mind, we put together a project proposal for IDRC to first have access of the needs of menstrual hygiene management, and then to do intervention and to offer menstrual caps, reusable pads, and to see if we will talk about nutrition, but we need to also work on certain issues that are pressing in this community. So this is also what's next step that Phyllis and I are working on together with some of few other colleagues and some of other QES scholars who are here that are working together with us. So thank you.
Thank you, and that's such a great example of future and further collaboration that can come out of one project and continue for another one and for many other years, right? So that's great. Okay, so I'd like to end by opening up to the audience. If you have any question, anything that you want to share, we have a few more minutes, I think. So.
Just a note for everyone on Zoom joining us, if you want to put any questions you have in the chat, we can read those out for you. And also everyone in the space, just raise your hand, we'll bring a microphone over to you so people on Zoom can hear. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Valentine Goddard. My question maybe is related to something that was brought up between connecting the local and the global. I've been advocating a lot in AI policy and AI governance to connect, to have better support for civil society organizations in that field. And the International Monetary Fund launched 2 years ago its gender strategy. And during the launch, one of the elephants in the room that was brought up was support for civil society organizations. So I know a lot of discussion we're having today is around academic research, but in that connection with locally led initiatives or different realities, how would you connect that? And I'm going to give a very concrete example. During the AI and a Social Mission Conference, the last one that I held, we put together a gender, environment, and digital economies expert group, of which Dr. Jane Ezirigwe is part of. And that led to a policy brief that was presented at the UN. So here we are trying to connecting an international expert group to the international stage, but I always feel that there's kind of like a ceiling that blocks those kind of initiatives from a funding perspective and real support perspective, permanent. So all that work was done for free. Nothing was ever paid. Nothing was ever supported. So it doesn't get the capacity to continue. So I'm talking really about maybe macroeconomic lack of bridges between that local and global and civil society and actual real systemic change. So any answer on that would be great.
If you don't mind, you guys, maybe I can take a try at this, just because it's one of the problems that really informed our project here at Concordia University. Our project is called, I can't remember the exact name, but it's around gender equality and the decolonization of knowledge around gender discourses. Because a lot of my research is around exactly that, as you could have probably told from the type of questions I asked. Before academia, I also worked, so a long time ago maybe, but I still kept in touch with a lot of what's going on at the NGO level, especially women's NGOs in Africa, and in particular in South Africa. And I know firsthand exactly what you're trying to, what you said very eloquently, the problem of funding, which comes from global institutions, international institutions, or funding agencies in the global north, and then initiatives carried out on the ground by local NGOs. And local NGOs often find themselves kind of pulled between the need to satisfy the funding agency at the end of the year with their final report to secure more funding, and the need to satisfy their constituents and to pay attention to their priorities. And oftentimes the priorities on the ground are not the same as the priorities of the funding agencies. And then we find ourselves at a problem where there's a need to report for empowerment and progress, this linear conceptualization of progress that is so typical of the West, right? Western conceptualizations, but at the same time, not meeting the needs, the very pressing needs of women on the ground. So part of a crucial aspect of our project is to pay attention to discourses and practices on the ground, and hopefully in our future publications be able to really complicate and challenge, the assumption that whatever ideas and prescriptions, global funding agencies come up with necessarily trickle down and translate into greater empowerment on the ground. Oftentimes it may not be the case, and we need to problematize this. Anything else? Did I answer your question a little bit? Okay. There's another question, but I want to give maybe Sarah, Phyllis, and Maria a chance to answer. Okay. Phyllis has to go. Okay, classic. Sarah? No? Okay. There's another question, I think.
Thank you very much for the interesting conversation. It's not really a question, it's a contribution. So also talking about the nuances. So like menstrual poverty that was mentioned by the speaker before, in Ghana is not a rural phenomenon necessarily. It's a general thing, but most of the thing, like with research, we tend to focus on rural areas because we think they are poor, but they are urban poor who are experiencing the same. So I'm thinking that it's important that you pay attention to the nuances in the urban spaces and how people are suffering, and we are neglecting those because our conceptualization of poverty has mostly been with the rural people. Because the statistics on adolescent pregnancies, which are basically in urban areas, and Accra, which are mostly in coastal regions, Accra, Cape Coast, Takoradi, and it's because girls don't have money to buy pads, so they have to sleep with men to get money. So if you keep going to the rural areas, you tend to neglect some women or young girls that are also in need. So I'll be grateful if we, in our conceptualization, in our research, and in our intervention, we actually look at the nuances in the geospatial spacings of girls and where they are represented. I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. The preliminary research was focused in particular at 3 areas where the highest rate of adolescent pregnancy is present. So this is how we defined the first 3 regions. However, the intent is to cover whole Ghana. In order to make some policy recommendations, we need to have representatives from the whole country. So we had to start from somewhere. So this was the reason why we started from 3 rural areas. However, it will be assessed at the whole Ghana level.
Maybe, do we have any question online or?
We do have a question here. I'll read one out. In most West African countries, women find it difficult to convey their agricultural products to the urban areas. In line with the issue of food sovereignty raised here, what is the global practice between the global North and global South?
That's a question for Sarah or Phyllis, maybe?
I think Phyllis had to leave, but yes, I'm not sure.
It's probably Phyllis, right?
Want to take that one?
Who works on nutrition. Yeah. Well, Phyllis had to leave, so...
Okay, well, we can pass that question on to Phyllis also, and she can probably provide an answer afterwards as well. There's a question earlier related specifically to the QES program, and we can pass that one on after the event also. Okay. Are there any other questions in the space, though? We do have one.
Thank you. My name is Gladwell, and I'm a student here, originally from Kenya. So I had a comment around the, you asked one of the differences between global and the local context of feminism. And I think when I think back home or just in the continent is feminism here in the West, it's understood to mean you're trying to uplift women. But back home, it's a war between men and women. So if you have projects and you want to succeed or you want to empower women, it has to have, I think, male, like as the leading face for it to succeed, so that it shows you're not fighting them. Like the collaboration, really, you have to really almost put the male forward, because so that you have to assure them, because this is local, you have to assure them that, yeah, we're just trying to pull each other up. So that was my comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. And it is true that there's different, types of feminism, I would say. Black feminists in the global North, post-colonial feminists, also called third world feminists, African feminists, they've all emphasized the need to understand, contextual family relations, and the need to understand feminism as not just uplifting women, but also men and children, the whole community. So yes, very important to understand not just cultural, but also, where are you working? Where are you working and how people relate to each other? Thank you for this. I think that we are out of time now, and I would like to thank all of our panelists and the audience and people on Zoom.
Thank you so much
for this great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you again to Dr. Jasor, Dr. Ivankovic, Ms. Cooper, as well as Dr. Addo, for your very enriching discussion, which I think is important when in a program like the QES program, where it's important to acknowledge and also discuss what brings us together, but then also what are the challenges that are based on each of the realities, whether it's geographical or cultural, as well as social. So thank you again so much. I realized that as I was giving the first few words, there were some nerves on my end, I will admit, and there were a few logistical details which I did forget to mention. So just to start off, please at any point while the morning continues and you need to get up, stretch, take a break, please feel free to do so. We do have some refreshments in the back as well. And you can also find the bathrooms if you once you exit the space and you turn right, you will be able to find it there just past the elevators. And again, if at any point you have any questions or need anything else, please identify yourselves to either myself, Julio, or any of the other event staff, and we'll be happy to further assist. Also have another favor to ask is just in terms of the lanyards, at the end of the afternoon, to please return them to us just because we need to collect the lanyards back again, but we'll be happy to leave the name tags with you. Now to move on to panel number 2. And again, a hearty thank you to everyone in panel 1. In panel 2, the topic is going to be engaging efficiently with community and audiences in a changing world, and how to adapt knowledge mobilization practices to changing social, political, and technological contexts. And the moderator for that will be Dr. Melanie Katsivo, who is adjunct research professor at the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics at Western University, located in London, Ontario. She's also Western University's lead principal investigator of their QES program. It would be amiss because in my rush, I forgot to give the appropriate introduction to Dr. Jasor as well. So I would like to just briefly say that Dr. Oceane Jasor is associate professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology here at Concordia University. And she is also the lead principal investigator of Concordia's QES program. So apologies for missing that, but would still like to give the appropriate credit. At this time, I will please ask for the panelists, Dr. Jane Ezirigwe and Elvire Somagnon, to please come up to the stage, and the event staff will coordinate with our 2 online attendees. Thank you.
Hello, Melanie. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Great. Thank you for welcoming me.
Great. Thank you so much. Do you have any slides to share? Anything that you plan on showing in the space today?
No, we do not. We will just present. We will just have a discussion.
Great. Thank you so much. And for our other panelist, Mohammed, would you mind turning on your camera and microphone so that we can test it out in the space and see and hear you?
Mohammed?
He might have just stepped away briefly, or we are working on it, so we will deal with that on our end. But in the meantime, just settle in, and thank you for joining us once again.
Mohammed, if you're having a problem with your camera, you can just go with just audio, or if you want to restart, sometimes that helps also.
Yes, he says he has a problem with the camera.
Yeah. It happens. Never to us here, but I have heard of it.
Okay, so shall we start the session then?
Mohammed, are you able to have audio only? That would be good. We can start, and we'll continue, Mohammed, we'll continue to try and help you out here. And
It appears like he left altogether, so maybe
that's good. He'll probably just rejoin.
he's trying to reconnect. No, yeah. He's actually on. So technically you can't do anything to switch on his camera, right? No.
No, that should be a, yep.
Oh, there he goes. There
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought if I click on OK, I leave the, anyway, so sorry about that. Okay, I'm here now.
Okay, we have everyone in the space. We can hear you well. We can see you. It's amazing. I think we can begin. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. We hope to make it as engaging and as interactive as possible. I will let the panelists, who are Elvire Asogba, who is a PhD scholar, actually placed here at Western University from the Abomey Calavi University in Benin. And we have Jane, Dr. Jane Ezirigwe, who is an early career scholar from the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. And then we have Dr. Mohammed Beobid, who is the CEO, the immediate past CEO of the Muslim Resource Center for Social Support and Integration here in London, Ontario. And that's where actually we place some of our scholars for their non-academic organization experience. So those are the three panelists that we have. And without much ado, I would like to invite them to give them their own self-introduction, 2 to 3 minutes, talking about the work that they do that is QES related on their projects. And I will start with the ladies first. Dr. Jane Ezirigwe. Mic not working.
Can you hear me? So, good morning, everybody.
We can't hear you online, though.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Jane Ezirigwe, and I'm a senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies in Nigeria. So NIALS is an apex legal research institute in Nigeria, and I've been with them for 13 years, conducting research and teaching some courses to postgraduate students. My research areas are on food and agricultural law, international trade law, and then the governance of AI and big data. Those are my broad research areas, but I try to mainstream gender in every research I do. So you will see a lot of my articles and research projects having the gender dimension to them. I had my PhD in the University of Cape Town, and I'm currently a QES scholar at Carleton University. At Carleton University, the QES program there is designed in such a way that females are given the space to write. So it's titled Her Own Room to Write. And so in that space, women are encouraged to do their work without distractions. And I found that very, very interesting, and I lived up to it during my QES program, which is ongoing, because I was able to, I had a contract with Routledge to convert my PhD thesis to a book. And within this QES program, I've been able to write up 6 chapters of that book. That was something I couldn't do for more than a year after I signed the contract, because I had to ask for extensions because I couldn't find the space to do this work. But the QES program at Carleton gave me that space, her own room to write, and I was able to write, and I'm glad I did. The second part of the QES program at Carleton needs me to be with a placement partner, and I'm doing that with the African Trade Desk. In that space, I'm leading a research that is looking at indigenous Kenyan companies that provide solutions to smallholder farmers in Kenya. And so this research wanted us to, we were interested in, we had some, the ATD, that's the African Trade Desk, had some clients that were looking at the coffee and tea industry to see who was doing what in that space as per digital solutions. But we had to expand it to other areas of agriculture, and it's an interesting research that I will talk about.
Excuse me, Dr. Ezrigwe. Dr. Ezrigwe, I have to interrupt you a little bit because you will give details of that work as we start the conversation.
I said I'll give
This
it
is just an introduction of the details and a little bit on
so
your
I
work.
think that ends my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. The next, I think I will sandwich you, Dr. Beobib, between the ladies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Baabed. I am the Executive Director of the Muslim Research Center for Social Support and Integration. Yesterday was my last day as the Executive Director at the Muslim Research Center. I'm very happy to be part of this very interesting conversation. I have been involved in the area of family violence responses for many years. Before I came to Canada, I did this work in Yemen. But also really my focus has been always trying to look into the responses to family violence, gender-based violence, using best practice in Western context, and adjust that within a collectivist context. So that's really what I've been doing at the Muslim Resource Center, trying to understand, the situation of victimization of gender-based violence in our community, and try really to maybe look into differential responses. And we have been able to develop a new model called culturally integrated family safety response, which really trying to make sure to balance between safety of women and children on one hand, but also understanding and working with the family and the community as a whole. I'm very happy to be part of this conversation. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And last but not least, Elvire Asogba.
Thank you, Ms. Melanie. My name is Elvire Asogba. I'm an early researcher. I am here at the University of Western Ontario as a visiting graduate student. I'm working on the effect of feeding practice on cognitive abilities among primary school children in Benin, in West Africa. I have done some work on how diet is related to cognitive ability among students. So that's all I can say to introduce myself.
Thank you, Elvire. Can I call you by your first name, Jane? What, in your opinion, or even based on your QES work, what is your experience when it comes to collaborations or relationships between the global North and the global South?
Thank you for that question. And so my experience with how the global North interacts with the global South, especially shaped by my QES experience, is on knowledge exchange and collaboration. So the whole capacity building, research projects, research initiatives, academic exchanges that goes on between mostly movement from the global South to the global North. That will be one area. The second area will be on migration and mobility. So in migration and mobility, again, you see more of the movement from the global South to the global North. because of more economic opportunities or for education or for health reasons, you see that movement towards the north. And I can share concrete examples if you let me do. And the third area that I would say that I have seen the interactions between the global north and south will be in resource exploitation and development developmental aids and assistance. So we see on one hand, the global north this time around, moving into the global south, the extractive industries, exploring their natural resources. And then the same global north returns in terms of foreign aids and grants and assistance to the global south by way of aids and all of that. So these are the three areas I can highlight and give more examples on if the time permits here.
And if I may follow up on that, very candid way that you have started this conversation, how has your experience here and time here in Canada helped to shape that opinion? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, thank you. And so my experience before the QES and maybe the popular view, say impression, would be that in this knowledge exchange and collaboration between the global south and global north, it will seem like, or it seemed like it was more beneficial to the global south. So there is this impression that it's the global south that benefits from these exchanges, because even in the QES program, you see people moving more from, like I said, from the south coming to the north. But my experience with the QES program has shown that it's a mutual beneficial interaction and exchange, because I have seen the caliber of the QES scholars that come to Canada and the value that they bring along with them that rubs off in this academic space. And like I said, I have my expertise and capacity has been built over the years by the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. And I came with this value, I came with these experiences, and I was able to share them with folks at Carleton University. I guest lectured, I taught some courses, I mentored some students, PhD students there. I shared my ideas and initiatives that were well received. And in turn, I gained again from folks and colleagues at Carleton University. I learned a lot about diversity, inclusion, and equity. It was something that isn't always very obvious at the global south environment, but being here and encountering diversity, I learned to be more conscious of DEI issues. I learned to pay attention to decolonization and then indigenous people too. So I learned and then I gave. So as against the usual impression that you just come to gain from this space, I appreciated the fact that I was able to give back and it was appreciated. But then this beautiful thing that we have in this knowledge exchange space is usually limited by visa restrictions. So while we've all experienced it, most of the institutions see that QES scholars are held back from moving to this place because of visa restrictions. The second thing I would like to just highlight briefly will be that the mobility I talked about, the migration and mobility I talked about for the purposes of education, education or economic opportunities, I also lived it out during my QES experience. Like I said, when I guest lectured, I taught the rights of the African child in a course called The History of the African Child. And I saw a lot of Black students coming from Africa and that enrolled in that course. So it was obvious that there was a lot of movement from Africa and African students coming over to the global north. And then again, I saw that some of the QES scholars that came for this QES program also nursed and wished for more opportunities to engage with the global north because of the kind of infrastructure and material resources that were on ground that are not very much on ground in Africa. So these are the two concrete examples. For my, my impression on the resource exploitation and AIDS, nothing has changed from my QES experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. And now we will hear from Elvire. Elvire, can you comment on your experience in terms of how the global north meets the global south? And this is based on your QES experience here in Canada, and also maybe bringing in some of your own opinions before you came to Canada. How does the global north meet the global south?
Thank you for the question. Based on my experience as a scholar here in Canada, I found out that the meeting point between the global south and the global north are multi-phase in several points. There are political interaction, which is ruled by legacy, historical legacy, and there is also economic interaction, trades, importation, and exportation from global north to global south, but also from global south to global north, which is not obvious, but there are some products which is brought from global south to global north. Also, talking about education and knowledge interaction, I've noticed several aids and assistance to global south people to get here, gain some knowledge, gain some interaction with researchers here. Based on my own experience, by coming here, I was able to have access to scientific materials, some articles which are not obvious back home, to write my review, and I'm on it, and it's going as I want and very quickly, which is not evident when I was in Africa. Also, I gained some concern about environmental issues. Here, I've seen some consciousness about environmental questions, which is not obvious in the global south.
So your being here has shaped what you just shared with us. How can you elaborate on how what role your placement here in Canada has played in the observations, in the experiences that you have shared?
Yeah. By being here as scholar, I have the opportunity to take as auditing students some course at the Western University. And there I found out how the technology is used in education, how technology is used by students in education to perform courses, even to submit assignments, the websites used. Those kind of tools are not available in Global South, and they are not so obvious as they are here. Also, I've take some courses which reinforce my knowledge and my capacity in writing skills.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Elvir. And now we will hear from Mohammed from a non-academic partner perspective. You already obviously had your own opinion and probably even experiences when it comes to the relationships, the interactions between Global North and Global South. But how has your hosting 4 of our scholars helped shape or influence your current understanding of North-South relationships?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know with a very limited time frame, I cannot maybe make just for this big question, but I can tell you a few things here. One, I think theoretically and conceptually at the Muslim Research Center, especially the research that we are doing, trying really to understand the gaps between, what is, produced by the Western communities, in particular in the area of social services, in the area of gender-based and family violence responses, and trying to see to what extent actually that meet the needs and how, for example, these issues are understood within, people coming from different background, like a collectivist background, whether it's Africa, many other Asian countries. So that's really what we're trying to really figure out. Where are the gaps and how can we be creative to develop programs and services that integrate best practice in the Western context and adjusted within a collectivist context. So that's really what we have been doing at the Muslim Research Center. So with this program, actually, it also helped us, like with the scholars that visit or maybe stay with us. They actually brought their also practical experiences, because those scholars coming with a wealth of experience, academical background, and then we are working together, in one of the particular situation. We're trying really to see to what extent can we work together to reduce this gap. We're working, for example, right now with Amanda from Ghana, and to look into how can we look at the culturally integrative model, culturally integrative gender-based violence responses that we are using here to address and respond to gender-based violence in newcomer communities within the African context. So that's really a great opportunity for us at MRC to have actually an opportunity to work directly with the scholars coming from Africa, and to build on that in the future, maybe also to work beyond this time frame and to do something in Africa. So that's the my response to your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Jane, so you said your non-academic partner is the African Debt Desk. Can you comment on some of the unique features that you found at your non-academic partner organization, and did you acquire any new skills, new knowledge? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. opportunity to share my experience at the African Trade Desk. So the African Trade Desk is an agency that is focused on promoting trade between Canada and Africa. And so it tries to conduct research, gather information, do due diligence, and advise its clients on trends and regulations, regulatory frameworks, and just business advisory services. That's basically what it does. And so my placement there, exposed me to the difference between academic research and market research. And so, like I said, the agency was interested in knowing what kind of digital solutions were being offered by Kenyan indigenous companies to Kenyan farmers. And it was a different kind of research for me. Market research, I was used to academic research. So we do all the ethical clearance, we recruit participants, and then we conduct the research, collect data, and all of that. But in this particular case, it was market research. And I found it very interesting because initially I had thought that it was going to be pretty easy. Oh, okay. So we write the companies, send them emails, ask them the questions we want to ask them, and then they will reply us. But that wasn't the experience. When we started, we identified, and it was hard to identify, about 30 companies. And then we reached out to about 25 of them with web forms and emails, and trying to find out what kind of digital solution do you have for farmers, and introduce ourselves, the company, I mean. And then it took a while before we could even get any kind of response. You would think that working with companies in their official medium of communication would get you some results, but that wasn't what happened. So eventually I had to build my skill on recruitment of participants. And so I understood and I experienced the difficulty in recruiting these participants. Eventually, we had to develop some strategies. We had to reach out to the team members that we saw on the websites. We had to go to social media to find some of them and reach out to them on social media before we were even able to get some results and schedule some appointments, and then sign some non-disclosure agreement forms and all of that. But in all, I would say that it was a different experience. Conducting market research is definitely a different experience from conducting academic research. And I was able to learn that skill on how to navigate it and get into social media and almost trying to follow up people and their activities on social media just so that you get their attention and get them to talk to you on these issues. Yeah, so it was very interesting for me.
Interesting. And how will you apply those back at your university in your work? And do you foresee any barriers using the new methodologies?
Yes, so like I said, it builds the skills on how to navigate hard to reach participants when you want to recruit, especially online. I pretty much thought it was going to be very easy, but now I know better. And so those communication strategies that we built on, I'm going to take it back home. While I do not primarily engage in market research, the opportunities, and that will be one of the limiting factors, the opportunities aren't much there in my workspace to engage in market research. But the skills there would help me in my recruitment of participants, even while I conduct academic research. So it's a very good skill now. I know I had planned to conduct an online, a research that I needed to reach people via online in the past, an academic research that didn't go through. But with this experience now, if I get to conduct any academic research that needs me to engage people online, engage companies, talk to companies, I already now know how to navigate some of these complexities because I've experienced it firsthand. And I'm not talking about, and when I say there were delays in replies and trying to get back to them, I'm not talking about 1 month. I'm talking about something that started as late as early as late January. For some of them, we just got feedbacks in April after a lot of back and forth. So now I know the complexities and I wouldn't waste that kind of time in the future. Once I get to it and I'm seeing some difficulties, I'm going to deploy some of these communication strategies I learned from this QES experience.
And a quick follow-up question to you, Jane. Do you see gender playing a role in any of these? Like, does the methodology, the approaches, do they seem to favor one gender over the other? And especially in the context of Africa.
So in the context of my experience within the QES program, I would say no, to the extent that the companies that we tried to engage, we reached out to both the males, some of them, yes, generally you would see that a lot of the management staff are males. So some of the people we reached out to, they were predominantly males, but I wouldn't say that they didn't reply to me because I was female. And I wouldn't say that, so I don't quite think gender was played out in this space. I think what I would say played out in this space, or what the feel I get, is that generally African companies are not very responsive to online communication. I think I would have gotten more results if I were to be on ground in Kenya and I had visited their offices and spoken to them. I think we would have gotten more results than we did trying to engage them online, but not necessarily because of any gender dynamics. I didn't see that play out in this case.
Okay, so gender representation it was not a factor in what you are trying to do.
No, it wasn't, because we were looking at companies, and most of the companies, when you go into the team, you would see the males being more, maybe 1 or 2 females. But in this case, because we didn't know who we were talking to specifically initially, so you write the company and wait for the feedback. But when we were not getting responses and we tried to reach out on LinkedIn, we saw a few males respond to us, like we saw some females to respond to us. So I wouldn't say there was any gender dynamics playing out.
Thank you. Elvira, what about you and your non-academic partner experience? Are you acquiring new skills, knowledge from that experience, from the placement?
Thank you for the question. Actually, my non-academic institution is MRSC. I didn't yet started the training.
Could you say what that is?
It's
for those who don't know what
MRSC. It's a Muslim organization. I didn't started yet the training, but I noticed I'll get in touch with them and soon I will start. But I'll notice from my experience at Western University, by collaborating with my professor and my colleague. We have shared some knowledge, we have interacted on writing my review paper, and I've gained some knowledge on how to contribute and write a review paper, sorry. And I may use that knowledge to mentor junior researchers back home on how to tackle those kind of issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mohammed, you have interacted with the QES scholars as a supervisor at the host as a host in the non-academic partner organization. Have they shaped how have they shaped your programming? Have they injected new knowledge, new ways of looking at things? And is this something that you're likely to use going forward?
Yeah. Hello? You hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think from our experience, this is something new that we have started at the Muslim Research Center, of course, in collaboration with the African Institute at the Western University. We have learned throughout this process a lot. And I would say maybe at the beginning was more like exploration. Also, the experience is different from one scholar to another. Most of them actually found a common interest, even though, for example, they are not, necessarily focusing more on the social service sector, but they found actually a common interest. In particular, when we talk about gender expectation, gender relations, and gender-based violence. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, from that end, what we have actually found, there has been some kind of mutual benefit. Of course, as I said at the beginning, they come with a wealth of knowledge and experience. And I actually remember two main kind of experience that we're really very interested in. One of them, as I mentioned, with Dr. Amanda, we were trying to. Is that from you or from me? Sorry.
I hope we are all muted.
Hello? Hello, you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, one experience in relation to, how can we work together to maybe use our experience working in the area of family violence responses within the Muslim community here in Canada. That's also really mainly collectivist communities, and take that factor of collectivist aspect and to see to what extent we can use this experience, in the West African context. One of the women mentioned in the previous panel about really when we talk about feminism and gender-based violence. I really like what she said. In the context of many collectivist communities, is a fight or a war between a man and a woman. I think that's really a very good example to show that, okay, we can really learn from one another and to create something that's more integrative, that's not really compromising, the safety of women, but also at the same time understanding the cultural context. So that's really one experience, and we're still working on that. Maybe also we would think of publishing a paper on this with Amanda. So another experience actually about the cost of family violence. So one of the professors from Nigeria, I think. So we had, sorry? Yeah, we're talking about really trying to see how can we work together, because she is economist.
From Liberia.
From Liberia, sorry. She is economist, professor in economy. So we want to, we're trying to work on that together, so she can bring the economical, lens to help us look into the, the cost of family and gender-based violence, and the cost saving if we use the cultural integrative model to respond to family violence within immigrant communities. So that's really our hope. We get that from her expertise, but also at the same time, maybe we can take this example to Liberia and see to what extent using this model also really will not just really saving lives, but also create space for diverse cultural, communities, and also really cost efficient. So those are really the examples that I can bring in terms of really the mutuality. Of course, we are really new in this area. It just really opened doors for us, and in particular for me as a researcher, I have done this kind of work internationally. It also would allow me to learn more from the African, experience, and I really think is a lot that we learn from. Actually, I think we need to think about that also. What we learn from the South is a lot, and maybe it's an opportunity for us also to address the power imbalance that we think always, we export ideas, but we also really need to learn from them and integrate both ideas to something that would be more responsive to different cultures. Thank you.
Perfect. You've mentioned Amanda a lot, and I know she's in person in the audience.
Maybe she should talk about her experience.
As we open this to the question period and engagement with the participants, I would like Amanda to take 2 minutes or 3 minutes to talk about her experience with the Muslim Resource Center for Social Support and Integration. Amanda?
Sorry, we're just getting Amanda now.
Okay.
Amanda, would you mind taking place at the podium to speak? Thank you.
And just take a minute to introduce yourself, Amanda. Like where you're from and so on.
Okay, so my name is Amanda Odoi, and I'm from Ghana. I work with the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, and I'm currently with University of Western Ontario, the Department of Geography and Environment, as a QES scholar. I completed my 6 months and I got an extension, so I'm staying on for an additional 6 months. And whilst there, I'm looking at the nexus between climate change and masculinities with the Geography Department. And I'm also working with MRC as I am part of their team, research team, where I'm looking at issues around gender-based violence and then the collective communities. So this is a bit about me. Sorry.
Okay. So what are the unique features at the Muslim Resource Center that have enriched your perspectives? Whether you have acquired new knowledge, skills, and how they might be applied when you go back to the University of Cape Coast.
Okay. So I think I've learned quite a lot with MRC. First thing I got to learn was with the framework, the SIFSO framework. So what I thought, I spoke with myself, my mentor back home, is the fact that we do gender-based violence activities in Ghana, but what we haven't really situated them in is a framework within which we operate. So with the SIFSO framework, which looks at collectives and how to look at our social backgrounds and your connection with your culture, other aspects of your life come together to shape how people experience and engage violence. It's something I want to take back, especially with the university context where we deal with students. We mostly use Western frameworks, and I found out when I came to realize that it's important that we situate it in the Ghanaian context, where we look at how the cultural background of the students, their knowledge, the families they come from, and the experiences of their life is shaping how they engage violence on campus, and also how we can offer the support that we require, especially around masculinities, which is my field, because we realize that knowledge around men, their behavior, their religious affiliation, and a whole lot come together, their mental health and all that, which is something we haven't really situated. So we are addressing advocacy around gender-based violence. We're doing research, but with which framework are we operating with? And so Dr. Balbade mentioned that we can work together on that and to tease out. I also found out that there are commonalities in how the collective cultures operate, irrespective of the race of the person, whether you're an Arab, you're a Ghanaian. So first, they're situated in that context of communal livelihood and how our culture and language shapes. It basically plays out in all angles, so it's important that we also draw the commonalities, which I am picking a lot, working with Dr. Belbeld and Abreu at the MRC.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that contribution. I'd like to open the floor for questions from the participants, and we shall be assisted by the hosts of this event in reading out the questions, if there are any, or
Yes, just a
pointing
reminder
out.
to those on Zoom, if you have a question, please type it out in the chat, and we currently have a question here in the space.
Hi. So yeah, once again, my name is Valentine Goddard, and my question is probably a little bit more for Dr. Izirigwe, because you mentioned resource extraction, and the partner you have is kind of interesting in that respect. So I'm going to bring it back to the conversation, the topic of this panel, which is in a changing socio-political context and a technological innovation changing context, which we know is strongly influenced by an intense AI technological race in a digital economy. Many mention data extraction strategies that equate to colonialization ×2. So I'd like to know, maybe in that context, what your thoughts are on knowledge mobilization and engagement, because where's that engagement, knowledge mobilization going? Does that equate? So what are your thoughts on that general context? Thanks.
Thank you for that question, Valentine. It's obvious that there is a digital gap that exists in the global south when it comes to issues of technology, AI, data, and all of that. So while in the global north, we're having conversations, and there are a lot of conversations, there are a lot of research initiatives, there are a lot of advocacy for inclusion and sustainability, sustainable practices all around these issues. There isn't quite a lot of conversation on that in the global south yet, for obvious reasons. So even the use of these technologies, the awareness of the value of data, and the capacity to use these technologies are not as much as we see in the global north. So it's natural that those conversations are going on in the global north, but are not quite going on in the global south because of these constraints. But then they are beginning to come up. While we see advanced progress in, for example, in EU when it comes to the governance of AI and data, we see a lot of progress again in China, and then some progress in the US and Canada. We see the will in, for example, Africa. So, for example, AU is championing an AI strategy in Africa, but concrete projects aren't much in Africa yet on the governance of data and AI. And one of the reasons will be because Africa is also trying to look around to see where to pitch its tent. So we see the EU, for example, leading on with a more of a right-based approach, and then China being more state-controlled, and the US being more on the business side. And so these are different approaches that are existing, and Africa is probably taking its time to study and know how to balance this, because Africa is more of a consumer than a developer in this space. And so it has to be careful on what to do and what approaches to adopt. So I think that would be one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of discussions and projects on it yet in Africa. The will is there, the intention is there, but it's taking time because we need to take cognizance of the fact that there are limited capacity in the continent, and then there are several approaches outside the continent, and it would be nice to adopt an approach that is adapted to Africa. So, yeah.
We have another
Thank you.
question here in the space.
Good afternoon. This topic is particularly a passion of mine, so I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys during the break a little bit more. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts. I'm quite interested in the idea of community engagement and how researchers can adjust their orientation and examine their assumptions about the populations they're seeking to serve. I was wondering a little bit if you could share a little bit along those lines of like, what is our quote unquote target audience? What is the community we seek to engage, and how we could make research more not only accessible to that population, but also to see them as our co-researchers. I just wanted to share a small example about the work that our team is doing in Bauchi State, Nigeria, and how they, one example is after household surveys around adolescent sexual and reproductive health, some of these statistics were shared with community members, and we tried to translate them into various stories. We asked them to translate some of these stories, these statistics into stories, and we developed a series of what I call like Nollywood soap operas. It's a series of 3 of them that has engaged, we've been using to engage in dialogue groups, and it's really transformed the way that the community has been thinking about it. One just small anecdote is we were looking over those statistics with the team that actually did the interviews, and there you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was so shocked because of some of the statistics that came out were very difficult and very raw to digest. And one researcher even said, like, had I not been at the interview myself and had I heard this, I would not have believed you. It's too painful to believe, and we have to really think about how we could present this in a way that is not diluted, in a way that is respecting the truth, and to bring this to our community. How can we do this? And so we're just trying to examine how these soap operas, I'm going to call them, but these docudramas have been helping to do this. I was wondering if you could share a little bit along those lines of how you've been approaching that, how to have a truthful discussion with the community about some of the research that you're doing, and if there's any engagement with the arts, that would be particularly interesting.
Do any of you want to respond to that? Maybe both Mohammed and Jane,
Okay.
and Elvira, do you have?
Okay, so I could take it while others also contribute. So one of the sessions that I attended as a QES scholar was on knowledge mobilization, which was organized by the QES program managers, and it was insightful and very informative. And one of the things that was highlighted, of course, we all knew, but when these things are highlighted and reinforced, it gives us confidence that we are doing the right thing, was on knowledge co-creation. So the fact that we see the participants in our projects as co-creators. The fact that we involve them even as we're designing the projects at the design stage helps in the kind of outputs that we get at the end of the day. So when we make them just subjects of the research, we don't get as much value as when we make them co-creators in building the knowledge. And not necessarily from the QES program, but even before I came for the QES program, I've been engaged in kind of research in Nigeria where we engage participants at the early stage, and I can testify that, you know, it helps with the quality of research output that you get at the end of the day. So yes, I am for seeing research participants as co-creators and having them validate the research project at the end of the project. It's very important because, you know, you get all the stakeholders in the same room and you share the research outputs, and if there are dissenting voices or opinions or the ideas, differing ideas, you know, they are clarified at that stage. I found it to be very important, a very important process in a research project. And then very importantly again, is the dissemination of this research output at the end of the day. So community engagement is also about what happens after the research is concluded. So sometimes as academics, we finish the research, we are more interested in writing them up as research articles that take sometimes 2 years to appear as research articles in journals or book chapters, and do not get to be read by majority of the audience, including the participants in the project. But when we engage in knowledge mobilization and dissemination outlets, we find out that we reach, we disseminate this information, because at the end of the day, you want people to consume the output of this research, and it's better off when you engage the community through not just academic conferences, or you could also do some blog posts and write in non-academic outlets like The Conversation and all of that, do infographics and try to get out to the public in general to disseminate the information. So that's the way to engage the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Very quickly, Mohammed, you want to add?
Yeah.
I wonder if Katie Bryant from IDRC could quickly probably talk about the initiative that you've put in the chat after Mohammed has contributed, and then we will need to close the session.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think most of the things that I would like to say, Dr. Jane already mentioned. I agree with her. A few things to add into that. You know, in our experience, we also have a clinical team who are working with clients directly to provide services for families, individuals, including women and men. So the research agenda will be actually guided by the community concerns as well as the concerns raised by our clients. What do I mean by that? So we really try, like for example, right now we're working on a new research project on understanding gender-based violence survivors in our community, their experience of receiving informal support from within the community, including faith-based services, as well as mainstream services. So the way we are really working on this kind of research, really a truly participatory kind of approach. You know, we co-design the whole process, the questions, everything we do with the key groups who are involved in this project. Like for example, the survivors would have their voice, but also at the same time, we want to hear from the community. What are their concerns? about engaging with the police, with shelters, with other mainstream services. Also, we want to hear from from the survivors about their experience, but also mainstream service providers, because sometimes we think we talk about barriers of accessing services. So we need to make sure that all these voices are really incorporated in the research design, in the questions, but also by the end of the day in the findings. So I know one thing that I would like to mention here, because many communities started to be really tired of research, because there is a lot of research happening. Sometimes you target the same people, interviews, focus group, surveys. So that's why, for example, our research is really community-based research. Basically, people feel this research is going to help them to improve the services, to make sure the outcome will improve their the services to meet their needs. But also knowledge mobilization is critical. We work together and create then maybe public education materials, but also really then create different kind of research agenda for the future. So that's really how we work with our community. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Katie, am I putting you on the spot? Would you like to say something about this initiative?
Sure. Well, I could say something about that, I guess, as program officer for Queen Elizabeth Scholars Advanced Scholars Program. I always want to emphasize that this is the advanced scholars component of the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship, because it really is supporting advanced scholars. I just want to say thanks. I'm not to hijack things, but just to say thank you for the invitation to attend today. We've been very happy to support Rideau Hall Foundation, which has worked with Universities Canada to implement this project, and then to all of the universities themselves, who have then done all of the wonderful things that we've heard about today. And I'm really happy to hear about the issue of knowledge mobilization. What Mohammed just talked about, I think, is so important to ensure that as we're doing research, we're always, as much as possible, to avoid that type of fatigue, really ensuring that we're co-constructing knowledge with the people with whom we're doing research with and on issues that are important to them. And I thought the point about the docudramas that were made by someone in the audience is a really interesting way to engage in knowledge mobilization and uptake, given that this is such a significant issue to International Development Research Center. I did point out, yes, in the chat, and I direct everyone who's interested in AI, because I think AI is such a key issue within the Education and Science Division. At IDRC, we are supporting and have been supporting for quite some time a lot of work on AI for development, particularly in the context of various African countries. And this has been something that IDRC and Swedish SIDA have supported. And some of you may be aware of the recent announcement that was made perhaps a month ago or 2 months ago, in which FCDO has given IDRC a significant amount of money, about I think 60 million Canadian dollars, to continue the work that it's been doing in the African context. So just to say that, and this is work that's really being driven, as I wrote in the chat, by African researchers, African developers, asking a lot of critical questions about how we ensure that AI is done in ethical and ways, and thinking about biases, et cetera, that can be embedded in AI practices. So just to point people to that in response to the question that was asked in the audience. So thank you. I'll end what I wanted to say there, but I'm really encouraging to see the QES-WA projects join together in this event. I think that's a really interesting mechanism, and I hope to see that continue as the project goes forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katie. I think I will invite Badri back. Is our time over, Badri? Is Bad?
Yes, it is now. But thank you so much again to all our panelists, as well as the moderator. I think it's always important, again, as I talked about, as someone who doesn't necessarily have a research background, I tend to look for always what is the application of the work being done, and to listen to everybody share their experiences as well as what they hope to see has been really, really interesting. And again, thank you so much for speaking today. As I'll ask for just the panelists to start leaving stage, I'll get everyone ready now just for our final speaker. We are coming towards, approaching towards the end, but we have a few more things left before the activities conclude. So we're going to have closing remarks now by Ms. Virginie Allard Cameus, who is the director of the Université de Montréal's international office. And please, I welcome you to, I want to say the digital podium, but I welcome you to speak. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you for inviting me to this great event, and good afternoon to you all. First and foremost, I wish to address my special thanks to the late Queen Elizabeth, who inspired this program bearing her name, which aimed to highlight her Diamond Jubilee as a leader who cared about the future and the development of knowledge by empowering young people to engage in research, particularly in the Global South. To the thinkers who conceptualized this program and gave it its shape, to the IDRC, Universities Canada, the Rideau Hall Foundation that established and supported it over the years, to the Southern partners who participated in the program developed with Canadian universities for the benefit of young researchers, to the managers who administratively facilitated the movement of candidates from the North and South and ensured the daily coordination of the program, visas, work permits, welcoming, integration, and return, especially for those who overcame numerous obstacles to achieve the objectives during their stays, both in the North and South, each with its own share of difficulties. To the scholarship candidates who believed in this program and applied whether they were selected or not, they faced numerous challenges but persevered to achieve their goals, often making significant sacrifices. To the researchers and academics who contributed to developing various competitive programs across the country, those who implemented the programs, formed selection and monitoring committees, provided supervision, and supported the candidates even before their arrival and long after the end of their internships. To industry or nonprofit sector partners who hosted interns to provide them with practical experience and broaden their horizons, perspectives, interpretations in a different world than their own. To civil society, which gave scholarship recipients the opportunity to engage in volunteer activities, to integrate them more into this different world opening up to them. Finally, thanks to those who work behind the scenes to ensure that everything runs smoothly, but might be overlooked not because their role was unimportant, but because their modesty matches their commitment and deserves a big thank you. In this regard, I wish to highlight the work of Badri Murali from Concordia University, who greatly contributed to the success of this symposium. In the beginning of the Queen Elizabeth, since the beginning of the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Programs, Université de Montréal has participated in 5 of these programs in diverse fields such as health, environment, nutrition, governance, and justice, offering over 100 scholarship opportunities to young researchers, thereby strengthening its partnerships worldwide each time. Speaking on behalf of all Canadian universities participating in the West Africa component, I believe we can say that this program has been a valuable experience that brought Canada closer to West Africa and beyond. It brings together actors from different backgrounds, countries, cultures, disciplines, experiences, united around the themes of gender equality, sustainable development goal, and the empowerment of women, girls, adolescents. This was an ultimate goal in line with the strategies put forward to achieve the SDGs by 2023. The BRIE programs contributing to enhancing the capacities of young researchers, prioritizing women as much as possible, have been a significant contribution to global efforts. The BRIE program's wealth extends beyond the scholarship recipients and to the actors we previously thanked. Indeed, it was enriching for everyone. We have already witnessed the development of this wealth through each candidate received in this program, the evaluation of their stay, training, supervision, experiences, and knowledge developed, as well as the networks they formed, both midway and at the end of their journey, or even better, once they returned home. Sharing their learnings was a source of pride and reassured us of the program's objectives being achieved. Furthermore, what better evidence of this wealth than the day you just shared both in person and virtually? A day that brought together participants from several regions and those who had the opportunity to participate in the BRIE program in one role or another. Sharing projects, experiences, both positive and negative, acknowledging that in both cases, these experiences undoubtedly helped them grow as individuals, professionals, and researchers. Enthusiasm, motivation, and excitement were palpable, reassuring us that our collective ultimate goal has been achieved. Thanks again to the BRIE program, which calls us to collaborate and evolve together. A little bit in French now. Investir dans le développement de l'humain est une garantie pour l'avenir de l'humanité, et ceci est d'autant plus certain quand on investit dans le développement de la femme. Les programmes du BRIE, dans leur ensemble, n'ont négligé aucune opportunité qui permettrait d'amener de jeunes femmes à s'y engager et de jeunes chercheurs et chercheuses à développer leurs capacités. Dans le cadre du programme Afrique de l'Ouest de l'Université de Montréal, c'est l'approche préconisée par l'une de nos unités, soit l'Observatoire IGIA, qui a été mise de l'avant et qui met l'emphase sur l'importance de créer des collaborations durables dans le respect des contextes de chaque région. En effet, l'Observatoire a pour mission de soutenir l'autonomisation en santé et en droit de la femme, de la fille et de l'adolescente à travers un réseau d'experts francophones. L'idée étant de faire l'inventaire des expertises existantes dans chacun des pays, de mettre de l'avant les meilleures pratiques développées localement, mais qui ont le potentiel d'être adaptées ou dupliquées dans d'autres, et de se partager les ressources de façon les plus équitables entre les pays. Et c'est dans cet esprit que j'ai fait le plaidoyer auprès de vous, chers boursiers et chères boursières, de poursuivre le travail de collaboration que vous avez entamé dans le programme et de le faire rayonner au-delà des frontières. To conclude, we wish to invite you to another event that will also be an opportunity to continue exchanging experiences on the themes of interest of the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship programs. Indeed, the Université de Montréal, through its International Health Unit, the Hygeria Observatory, and UDM International, will host the 5th International Mukwege Chair Congress from December 3rd to 6th, 2024, at the Palais des Congrès de Montréal on the topic Ending Gender-Based Violence, Empowering Women and Sustainable Development. We look forward to seeing you there in large numbers. Thank you for your time, and once again, congratulations to you all.
So thank you so much, Virginie, for those closing remarks. And as we know, it's not the end, because we have another conference now to look forward to in December, which I'm sure is going to be an incredible one. And even for today, we're still not done. We have one last activity, which will be on Zoom, and then afterwards the space will be open for the scholars to talk about their work. So I'm going to speak now directly to all of the scholars in the room who have confirmed their attendance online. On the other side of the space, you will see that there are a little booths with your names on it. I'm going to ask you to go to where you see your name, and now a camera is going to come around. When the camera comes around, you will have 1 minute to briefly introduce yourself and the work that you're doing. This way, everyone who is also on Zoom and joining virtually will have a chance to see each and every one of you. Following that, we can have lunch and the space will be open. But for now, I kindly request that all of the scholars here in the room to please get up to go to the other side. We'll take approximately 1 minute to make sure everybody has a space ready and the camera is coming for you. And for all of our Zoom participants, we'll get started on that in just a minute as the scholars take their places. Thank you. Merci.
Your country and institute of origin, and then tell us a little bit about your research, okay?
My name is Dr. Rosemond Akpene Hiaji. I am from the University of Ghana, Legon, at the Sociology Department, to be specific. My research interests are in the area of medical sociology, and most of the research I do is in the area of reproductive health. As part of the QES program, my research mainly looks at the subject of reproductive justice. And so I look at it in terms of the SDG 5, where we are looking at the reproductive right of every individual to decide when to have a child, if they would want to have a child, and also having the capability to take care of the child. So I interrogate this concept of reproductive justice within the Ghanaian context and look at the various ways in which sociocultural factors influence the process and the extent to which women, especially within these spaces, are able to enjoy this reproductive right.
Thank you, that's wonderful. All right, next up, we'll have you say your full name, your country and institute of origin, and a little bit about your research.
My name is Mercy Aposwin Abarike. I come from Ghana. I'm with the University for Development Studies as a PhD student. I am studying environmental management and sustainability sciences. I'm affiliated to the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. And we are working on gender productivity gaps in farmer-led irrigation. And farmer-led irrigation is simply irrigation that is led by farmers. They initiate in doing, looking for water, in buying equipment, and then deciding on what kind of inputs to use at what time, sometimes having to look for who would buy their produce at the end of the day. There is research on the gender gaps in productivity in relation to rain-fed agriculture and in irrigation, but not much on farmer-led irrigation. So we thought of looking into the gaps in productivity between males and females in this area to find out what the gap is and then what is contributing to this gap. And so far, we've realized that the main thing, just like in the panel discussion. I think, was it Priscilla? She mentioned land, Phyllis, land. We realized that the gender productivity gaps in farmer-led irrigation is mainly as a result of differences in access to resources, and mainly land was a contributing factor to the gap in the productivity that we realized.
All right, next up, we'll have you say your full names, your country, and institute of origin, and tell us a little bit about your research.
My name is Mona Gadarian. I'm a QES alum. I did my PhD at McGill University in collaboration with the University of Ghana. My research was in rural Ghana in the Upper Maniakrobo district with adolescent girls. And my interest really lied in how to promote adolescent nutrition and community-based filmmaking, and giving the tools of the arts and film to adolescent girls to think about the needs of their community and how they could change their own behavior and the community around them. And now I'm currently working with the participatory research at McGill Lab in the Department of Family Medicine, looking at adolescent sexual reproductive health in Nigeria, Bauchi State.
Thank you. So I'm Aishat Abdu. I'm also a Queen Elizabeth Scholars, Advanced Scholars alumni. I'm affiliated with McGill University and University of Ghana. I did my research there in Ghana in the rural area at the eastern region, focusing on women farmers and trying to understand the linkages between gender dynamics and empowerment and how it impacts their nutritional status as well as household food security. Since I completed my QES scholarship, now I'm a postdoc affiliated still with McGill University, working in South Asia and East Africa on issues related to sexual reproductive health and gender transformative approaches. Thank you.
So next up, we'll show you a quick preview. One of our researchers has sent in a video. So at the very end, we will share that with all of you on Zoom. So stay tuned. Okay, great. Next up, so your full name, your country and institute of origin, and a little bit about your research.
Thank you. So my name is Jane Ezirigwe, and I'm a senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies in Nigeria. I'm presently a QES scholar at Carleton University, Institute of African Studies at Carleton University. At Carleton, a very warm place, very receptive environment, I've been able to focus on two projects. First is converting my book, my thesis, my PhD thesis, into a book with a contract from Routledge, and I've done tremendously well in that aspect. I have about 6 chapters written up, and all thanks to the QES program that provided the room and the space for me to write. And for my second project, I looked at what kind of digital solutions exist in Kenya for Kenyan smallholder farmers, provided by indigenous Kenyan companies. And in it, we try to look at how accessible is the data that is generated in that space, who has access to it, how is it shared, and what kind of do they get a prior informed consent from the farmers? Do they know that their data will be shared after they are aggregated? Will they be able to move with their historical data when they want to change service providers, and all those kind of data ownership and data sharing mechanisms and measures? How much is it put in place in this space? Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to share some of the findings because they were non-disclosure agreements that were signed before some of those information were shared. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. So same questions for you, your full name, country, and institute of origin, and tell us a little bit about your research.
Thank you. So my name is Melina Rondolo. I'm from University of Abomey-Calavi, Benin, one of proud ambassador of French country speaker. So I'm doing my PhD in human nutrition and public health, and I have a background in food and nutritional security and public health, so nutrition and population health. So right now I'm working on, my thesis is about adolescent feeding practices, subjective and objective school food environment, what is available for students, what are they, and what is the perception about availability, and also try to find the best strategy based on local food to help improve the diet, to have a healthy diet, because we are all talking about women empowerment, women leadership. But if we want to have a smart woman, we have to also take into account what they eat or what they have to eat when they are young to become a complete woman in their adult age. So cover that's my topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Great. So the same questions for you: full name, institute, country, and a bit about your research.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joyce Sanku, a faculty and researcher in the Department of Teacher Education, University of Ghana. Currently, I'm a QES scholar here at the University of Concordia. My research looks at the intersection between gender equality and education, specifically how educational materials portray, perpetuate, or even challenge gender biases. If you look at the general literature, and generally we can say that access to education has increased. However, we still have high male supremacy and gender stereotyping in society, which sometimes seeps into curriculum materials. So my focus is to look at how gender equality is portrayed in our curriculum materials.
Thank you. Wonderful. Full name, country, institute of origin, and a little bit about your research.
Thank you very much. My name is Amando Doi. I'm from the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, and I'm doing my postdoc with University of Western Ontario. So I'm a QES alum. I just finished my 6 months in February. So whilst I was on the program, my research background is on sexualities, gender-based violence, and masculinities. So in my research, I tried to connect the nexus between the three and how they shape social constructions and mannerisms and all that. So I looked at the nexus between climate change and masculinities. So most of the climate change discourses I've looked at gender as the tool or analytical framework for shaping how climate change impacts women. But my argument is that men are the major stakeholders, if that's the argument. But then within that are also nuances of men who are not powerful, they are not strong, so they're also impacted by climate change. And then if we look at where men are located in the various spaces in the climate change mitigation and discourses, we would be able to position them. Also, if you address men's needs, we address women's needs. Because if you empower women and you leave out men, masculinity discourses shows that men use violence as a means of reinstating their power when it's lost. So let's address masculinity issues so that we can protect women and achieve the gender equality concerns. So I looked at climate change, climate securities, and how to develop a framework. So with my supervisor, we came up with a framework that can be used to tease out what masculinity issues are important and how to address them, because masculinity is not a field of gender that's mostly studied. So when people go to the table, they lack the lenses to tease out those issues. So the framework is to help tease out the masculinity lenses, to tease out the nuances, because men are not a homogeneous group. So there are nuances in masculinities. There are hegemonic masculinities, and then there are subordinate masculinities with their sexualities, where we also talk about the fact that those in the LGBT community are also impacted by climate change, which is also another field. So I try to connect all this to T's, and I got an extension. So currently I'm looking at masculinities and how it shaped COVID-19 and how it shaped masculinities, and also how that will intertwine with gender relations. So that's a bit about me.
Great. You can tell us a little bit about your research.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Mrs. The Mrs. is important. Dr. Mrs. Cyriline Amwapwampong. I am a historian by profession. I'm with the University of Ghana, and my area works on women activism first, and then on the nexus between gender and health. Currently a QES scholar, but used to be a Fulbright scholar in residence. I'm working with Dr. Patience, and she'll introduce herself in a minute and tell us a bit more about our research.
Hi, my name is Dr. Patience Jaminautra Asante. I'm from University of Ghana. I'm with the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy, and I'm also a QES scholar. So we are looking at women and health. So here we are focusing on cancers, and we are looking at the local conceptualization of cancer causation and how it influences how people respond to their illnesses. So what do people believe is the cause of their illness? How does that lead to their healthcare choices, and what are the implications of such, decisions?
So in a nutshell, we're very interested in the idea of decentering the issues of the global health discourse generally, and seeing how that impacts the SDGs ultimately. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elvia Soma. I'm a visiting graduate student at Western University here. I'm from the University of Abu Mekalavi in Benin. My work is about how feeding practice is related to cognitive abilities and school performance among primary school children. Because we are all talking about development, Africa development, but we know that every decision should be implemented by humans. So we have to reinforce human education, and we are looking forward to address micronutrient deficiency, which are a threat to the education system in Benin. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Avoklia. I'm a PhD candidate with the University of Ghana Institute of African Studies. And for my PhD, I'm looking at feminine characterization and film aesthetics in West African cinema. And I'm doing a comparative analysis between Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and Burkina Faso. I'm a QES scholar as well. And for this project, I'm looking at domestic violence in Ghana, but looking at what is causing the culture over domestic violence in Ghana, because the prevalence is high, but people are not talking about it. So for my documentary, what I decided to do is to interrogate why that's silenced, and that's what I seek to do with the documentary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Elena Bakan. I'm also from University of Ghana with the Department of Adult Education. So my research areas are in the field of adult learning and education, and then teacher learning and continuing professional development. As part of the QES project, I'm seeking forward to tell the tales of female member of parliament in Ghana, because what is happening is that women tend to be only one-term member of parliament. So I intend to look at what is it within the parliamentary space that tend to act as second layer discrimination against women. Because for those women, they've already broken the first layer, which is the access into the member of parliament. But then within that parliamentary house, there are also further discriminatory practices that tend to challenge their operations within there. So I want to look at their perspective, and in a way, also argue that further women or younger women their stories can serve as a source of inspiration for women, and by so doing, we'll be able to broaden women representation, because oftentimes representation does not really translate into active participation within the parliamentary space. So that's what I intend to investigate with the QES project. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Abnache. I'm a research fellow with the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy, University of Ghana. So my research is broadly in two areas. I'm interested in gender and religion. I'm particularly focused on how one's position in society as a man or woman influences their spiritual experiences and the ways in which they engage in religious spaces. I'm also very much interested in popular culture, especially music, and how it can be both empowering as well as disempowering for women's participation. So I'm also a QES scholar, and so for this time, I'm interested in interrogating how the narrative about empowering women in the music industry generally can start with the women musicians themselves, how their images and representations can be reconfigured from being seen as sexual symbols into empowering models for younger women. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Amenyon Akapo. I'm a PhD student in agricultural economics at Zhejiang University. It is a sandwich program between University of Lomé and Zhejiang University. As a QS scholar, I'm working at University of Saskatchewan on the topic. Globally, we are working on gender equity, the access to water, and in gender equity contest. But currently, our research is focused on access to drinking water and its impact on health and education among girls in the global West Africa. So it is mainly to use our econometric and statistics skill to accurately show how the access to water affects health and education among women and girls in the global West Africa. But more precisely, today we are going to show, based on the World Bank data, the insights in Benin. Yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful. So I think next up, if we could just share the video. Oh, look at me.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
1 second. Pardon my pronunciation, but we have Dr. Charles Azubuike Nieke from Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Nigeria, and I will play the video now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Charles Azubuike from Nnamdi Azikiwe University of Nigeria. Here this afternoon to present the paper entitled The Place of Women in Selected Igbo African Literature. In this study, the researcher dived into the Igbo literary work to expose how women are portrayed, mostly the negative influence of women in the Igbo literary world. Most importantly, this study looked into the influence of Chief Zedai Okerigomo, Chief Opala, aka Zedai Okerigomo, on the Igbo literary artists. The Igbo literary artists on that story are able to copy or reflect their role models' attitude towards women by pouring massive verbal attack on women in their work of art. Two works are used for analysis. These works are Nkemjika of G.I. Mozuzu and Material of G.O. Nyekong. In these two works, massive verbal attack were poured on women. And this study is here to expose to the world and to see how the coming generation can be redeemed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one last researcher, so I'll have you say your full name, your country and institute of origin, and a little bit about your research.
Hello again. My name is Marija Djekic-Ivankovic. I'm from McGill University, School of Population and Global Health, where I have a privilege to serve as a researcher for the last 4 years. My research focus is on maternal and child health nutrition, and I'm lucky to work in 3 continents, in several countries, trying to find a common issues related to maternal and child health nutrition, nutritional issues like preeclampsia, stunting, and more like how to protect health, to prevent disease, and to promote good health and good nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our researchers. Badri, I'll throw to you.
Thank you. This is going to be the essence of my last, I promise I'm going to keep this to 1 minute because I know it's been a long morning. We're all hungry and lunch is about to be served. But first and foremost, thank you to everyone today for not only coming, but for also speaking. So first, I want you guys to give yourself a round of applause. Because it does take a lot of work to do what you have done and to also be able to communicate about it in so many different contexts. And for some of you, even in something that's not your primary language. So really, congratulations to each and every one of you. So this event would not have been possible if it wasn't for a few key folks. I want to start off by thanking especially the Inter-University Subcommittee. It consisted of folks from the University of Ottawa, Carleton University, University of Alberta, Western University, the University of Saskatchewan, as well as Université de Montréal. I also want to extend a special thank you to Ms. Nathalie Pelletier and the Université de Montréal team as well. In addition to that, I also want to give a big thank you to my manager, Julio Sevilla, whose guidance would have not, without the guidance, this would have gone a lot more, there would have been a lot more challenges, so thank you, and especially to other folks on the Concordia International team, which is my office. And finally, I also want to thank Universities Canada, Matt Henderson, Sabrina Ouellet, and Jean Gallagher for your not only the supervision and the management, but also for the guidance you provide to so many of the university folks who are working on the project, as well as to community partners. And in addition to that, I do want to thank the Rita Hall Foundation as well as the IDRC for their support of this program, without which none of this would be possible. So those are all the thank yous on my end, and of course to the Fourth Space team as well, without whom such a seamless virtual event as well would not have been possible, because that's always been the focus of what we do, is to ensure it's as accessible as possible to everyone. So for those of you who are also joining us on Zoom or on YouTube Live, from wherever you are, thank you for taking the time. I know it's not always easy to sit through a few hours of an online set of sessions, but the fact that you did it means the world to all of us. So without further ado, now lunch is served, and in the afternoon, the scholars will be again in the same space here, available to talk in more detail and in more depth about their work. And if you're not one of the scholars, I encourage you especially to go and speak to them and listen to them talk about their work, because as we've heard little bits of it and in some details, there's so much happening, and they have accomplished so much and will continue to do so. And for the scholars, this is a chance for you to develop your networks with each other, as well as in some of the visitors. So I encourage you to take full advantage. But first, make sure you eat some food, and then we can start talking. And just as a last little reminder, I know that there are only some physical copies of the program and the agenda. not to worry, a digital version of it will be shared with all of you. And please note that all the recordings will be available on YouTube as well for your future viewing. Thank you so much. Merci and have a good afternoon.
Okay, merci tout le monde. Thank you everyone for joining us in ForSpace today. We'll be closing up the Zoom and the live stream now, but just remember, as Badri mentioned, it's available on our YouTube channel. Nous allons maintenant fermer la réunion Zoom et la diffusion en direct, mais sachez que la conversation est déjà accessible sur notre chaîne YouTube. Je vous souhaite un bon après-midi. Good afternoon.